We and welcome one and all.
Yeah,
It
man, you
runs
got
up
to do an opening. It's all up to
no,
you.
in my case, I'm more of that guy who will showcase others.
That's the thing about the three of us. That's our main goal, isn't it?
Yeah. The thing is, I like I like doing certain things. I like doing a lot of things. I'm gonna show you guys something. Promise me you won't laugh.
I will not laugh.
This is the comic I did in 24 hours.
I don't see it. I see your face. I don't see the. There we go. Now I can
Bro, I've
sort of
been
see
wanting
it.
to do one
Head off
of
camera.
those.
There we go. It's
Yeah, this is
that's
this is
nice.
I did this last year for the 24-hour comic book day challenge. I actually finished it in 22 hours. I wasn't trying to rush.
I've been wanting to do one of those forever. If you hear of another one, let me know and I'll join it.
Well, it takes place every year, first Saturday in October.
Okay. Is it a
You can either
national
do,
group?
actually it's international now.
Very cool.
You can participate online or in a local comic shop or in some school libraries.
I would do it in anything I could do it in. Free Lunch Comics out of Connecticut does it once in a while, and they do it in a
Mhm.
shop, but I haven't been able to make it to the shop.
Right.
But one day,
One day you'll make it.
I just think that's such a cool concept, to
Yeah.
crap one out and
Well,
just.
it was started by Scott McCloud in 2005, I think it was.
So, how many pages is your comic?
That one is 24 pages.
Nice.
The object is to complete a 24-page comic in 24 hours. So it's like, it's
But
hard,
it's
and at the same
it's gotta
time,
have
if
rough
you give,
edges,
yeah,
right?
it's like it's giving yourself a. If you give yourself a deadline, you'd be surprised at how fast you'll work or
And
how
if it's in
fast
a
you will actually
competitive
work.
realm,
Right. Even
I'm
though
big on
there are no,
deadlines.
even- Chris, even though there are no prizes for this, it's like, wow,
Well, the
really?
prize is almost like accomplishing the goal.
Yeah. I've done this 9 times already. The first time I did it, I didn't quite complete it. I had the story written out, but when I drew it up, I fell short by 8 pages.
So, did you write the story at the same time? Like, was it a story you pre-wrote and then drew, or do you have to come up with it
Well,
on the spot?
well, most participants usually have a script prepared because it takes about 6 or 7 months to actually get all the thoughts down.
Yep.
But they won't draw it until the day of.
I can tell you, Last of the Reapers is the first book that I've actually scripted in a professional way.
Mhm.
I've been using the Stanley Jack Kirby method, but
Yeah,
without having a real Jack Kirby or a real Stan Lee, it hasn't been what I want it to be.
well, the Marvel method is a plot first script. So you plot it out and then you just build the things around the plot. That's it.
But without the chemistry of an artist and a writer, like I think the thing
Yeah,
that made it work for Stan and Jack is they were two separate men with great creativity.
right. He could write, Stan could write a plot, and Jack Kirby could just bring it to life. The same with Steve Ditko and many of the other artists that he works with.
Yep. I don't think they use that method anymore, though.
Not really.
The new books don't seem to have that feeling to it.
Because they don't. They don't. And you're right, they don't. Because it's like it's too many elements missing because it's like even though Stan wrote the script one way when Jack or whoever was drawing it drew it. They followed the plot, but it had it had a feeling of everybody involved in it.
Yep.
It takes John Buscema to tell you about that one.
Well, I've watched a couple of documentaries on it with interviews and stuff, and
Yeah.
it was like, from what I understood from Stan, he would come up with a plot, Jack would draw it, and then Stan would come up with a script to fit the drawings. And sometimes he said, Jack would go off on a tangent in some other way, so he'd have to write into it. You know what I mean? Like it forced the two of them to be creative.
Yeah. And the Silver Surfer was an accident.
I am always amazed by the Surfer.
Now the thing is, Stan Lee had never intended for the Silver Surfer to exist when he introduced Galactus. But Jack Kirby said, but Galactus is so powerful, he needs a herald to go find these worlds for him. And so it was like, then Stan thought about it and said, you're right. Let's go with that.
But the whole concept, like, I can tell you, if you and I were working together and there was no Silver Surfer, and you said, hey, let's have this cosmic guy come in and he's going to fly around space on a surfboard, I'd be like, that's freaking stupid. What are you talking about?
Exactly.
It works so well.
It works so well because it's so far out there that it's like,
And it's relatable because everybody loves a surfer. Even if you can't surf, they always look cool.
They look exactly. But given when the Silver Surfer was created, it was the height of the surf culture. So it was like, oh man.
Yeah, I can't imagine what the equivalent like. Would it be the Silver Skateboarder today or something? Maybe, I don't know.
It'll either be riding a skateboard or a snowboard.
Yeah,
today. that would be the thing.
The Silver Jaywalker.
Yeah. He'd need a way to fly around space. That would be the only thing. But that's the way. It's one of those happy accidents that happen because it's like something. Jack felt something was missing, and Stan didn't really know what it was. So he came up with it.
God, I think I'm going to draw the Surfer right now. You guys got me thinking about him.
Me,
And,
I could write many stories.
what was the controversy between Stan Lee and Jack Kirby? Or do we want to skip that? Didn't they both have?
Well,
wasn't Jack jealous about? Well, rightfully jealous because he wasn't getting proper credit.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
The thing is, Stan was selling himself as a writer. He wasn't selling himself as an artist or creator. He always had this thing where he made sure everyone got credit for creation of whichever character they were working on.
Well, and at that time, wasn't he the one who made the letter title that was marked in the book? And I don't think DC was doing that when they when they were giving credit to people.
No, they weren't.
Did they have kind of a thing back and forth too, where they would Stan Lee change Kirby's art?
Yeah.
To fit his story, or did Kirby change, Stan Lee stuff? It seemed like they were kind of doing some stuff back and forth, but wasn't that kind of the Marvel way too? Or became the Marvel way?
Well, Stan and Jack did a lot of back and forth. That's why they worked so well together.
Like, I think they sometimes would have different interpretations of how the story would go, didn't they?
Right. They did.
And I can't remember which one of them would win out. Which one would end up in the final version?
Well, in the case of Jack and Stan, it depended on how well the story flowed. That was their thing. It was really about how the story read.
I thought it was whoever was sending it to the printer or something. Whoever added their stuff last.
I'm sure some of that might have happened, though.
The thing is, Stan and Jack really still had to answer to the publisher and the editor.
That's true.
at the whoever the editor was at the time. So they really didn't care. They really didn't care as long as it got published.
Wasn't there an inker who would just completely erase Jack Kirby's?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there were too many people there to draw, because he was like, there was this one. Who was that? He would
I'm
make
gonna
sure.
look it up. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I would like make sure that.
Yeah, so do I. That it's funny. It's funny.
Vince Coletta.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
because
That's
Vince
true.
Coletta was known for being on time, and sometimes he had to cut some corners and cut out some characters and cut out some detail to
Yeah,
get
he
it
did.
right.
He
It
did.
really worked for
Didn't care
certain
that
stuff,
much.
but not. It didn't work as well for other stuff.
No.
But really,
The
that's
thing
why
is-
we got to remember the publisher really they're not as loving for the characters as we are.
Right.
They don't care if you're tracing. They don't care if you're stealing. As long as they don't get implicated in a lawsuit, they're generally like, just spit out the work and we'll be happy.
Right.
But that tracing stuff is driving me nuts. I'm seeing more artwork where I think it's traced, and I'm just biting my tongue because it's none of my business.
Well, the thing about tracing it, there's one thing you must understand about tracing. Two people can trace the same thing and it will always look differently.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's what makes it so difficult. If
What if
it's
somebody-
just one person doing it, then you can probably tell.
What if somebody takes a photo? They take the photograph themselves, for backdrop, then they trace it.
There's a guy who does that. Who is it? Oh,
There's quite a few guys who do that. There's quite a
But
few
there's a
guys who do
big,
that because
Ross
I
does
forgot
that.
his name. But yeah, Bob Ross does it. He does it a lot because what he's mainly focused on is the colors. He's more focused on color than anything else.
Yeah, he wants
Then
the
you got
lighting.
guys, right? And then you got guys who really have trouble drawing backgrounds, cityscapes, things like that. So they will take a picture of the cityscape, trace it, and then use it. Especially if they're working with Marvel Comics. So tracing the New York skyline and just improvising a couple buildings here and there is no big deal.
Yep.
As long as you got the iconic buildings down there, like the Flatiron Building, the Empire State Building, and stuff like that.
And
They
tracing
really don't
backgrounds doesn't bother me nearly as much as like I saw an article about tracing 3D models. And I know exactly what they're talking about because I have a 3D modeling app that I like to use to reference when I have a difficult pose.
Right. Yeah.
But if you try to trace it, the muscles don't conform right. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And it's like, oh, it's ugly to me. And when I see it, I bite my tongue because I don't want to criticize. But I'm like, that is just ugly. It's ugly.
Haven't some people just like completely made comic books like using 3D? I mean, maybe not completely, but they use the 3D models that are pre-existing. Yeah. I mean, I guess you watch like some movies, like there are a lot of movie studios that would actually use stock film. It'd be like a car accident or something. And I like that when they had that. Do you guys remember on Saturday Night Live, they used to have Toon Sister driving cat, the cat who could drive. Well, Toon Sister driving cat, the cat who could drive a car. I don't want to be get you your channel struck or whatever. But yeah, so the cat would inevitably get in a car accident, and then they would always use this like cheesy stock footage of the cars like going out of hell or like be rolling over again and again, like catch on fire.
Yeah. The thing is, that's an animation technique called rotoscoping.
Yep.
They use stock footage like that just so they wouldn't have to draw it over and over again, because when you're drawing something like a car accident, the thing is there's so many intricate dents in a car that happens that it's hard to draw.
Yeah. Now, did Filmation do that, or was that because I think we're talking about
Filmation did that with Filmation did that with He-Man, She-Ra, and a few others.
And
I mean, where they reused the stock over and over again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I actually think,
especially for the jumps and flips and things like that.
I think the character designs were pretty cool on that. I mean,
yeah,
you know, it's just they didn't necessarily, but they had to put that on like in a. They had to probably get that out in a hurry, or because I think The Simpsons takes like maybe like a year to draw each episode, which I don't know how they ever have. I don't know how they have this many years worth of footage unless they have a bunch of different animation teams. I could be wrong about that, but it seemed like it took
animation is funny too, though, because once you get those established backgrounds, you can run anything on top of them, and a lot of times, if you think about the transformation. I have the power. That's the same 20 seconds.
It's the same 20 seconds skit over and over in each episode, or however many times it goes through the transformation.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, it had transformation just like standard anime. Yeah. I mean, like kind of like later on, Sailor Moon had that. I think that was later, but
yeah, they used rotoscoping also because it's like. All they had to do was draw these transformations once and just keep reusing them.
Yep.
So that's the weird. That's always been the controversy with artwork is like, and then there's been the claim that who was it? Was it Picasso who said who supposedly said something about artists. Was it was it good artist borrow, great artist steal, or something? Which I think that was being. I think it was hyperbole. You know, I don't think it's.
That sounds like Picasso because he did reference that great artists will steal elements from other artists.
Well, I know when I found out Rockwell took his own photos, but he used those photos to create his paintings. Mm-hmm. I was shocked. I was like, "What?" And they're like. Yeah, they trace the photo onto the canvas, or actually, art colleges call it transfer.
Yeah,
I was talking to my daughter because she's an art major and she graduated, and I said, "What the hell is up with Norman Rockwell tracing?" I just found out about this, and it's not tracing, it's transferring. I'm like, no, it's tracing. I don't care what you call it. Apparently, it's been happening for centuries. I mean, they've been.
Yeah. Oh, there are devices that help you do that too. That's been around for centuries.
Yep, but as a comic book artist, as a cartoonist, that seems so counterintuitive. Like I'm like, but that's not how Stan the Man would have us do it. That's not how John Byrne would do it.
Well, the thing is, you have to understand, they weren't in charge of how characters should look. So up until the 90s, when Todd McFarlane and the rest of them came in, Spider-Man only looked one way. They could only do so much.
Yep.
Todd McFarlane came in and said, "This looks so static." And anybody who's read a Spider-Man comic book knows how much Spider-Man brags about his agility and his flexibility. So
Todd McFarlane
decided to showcase that instead of having Peter talk about it in a monologue.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even the artist
Gumby or something, or how did they showcase it? Did they have him like all stretchy? Or
well, remember he had the spaghetti webs, and he all of a sudden like he would put like Spider-Man with a knee up against his forehead almost, and one off to the left, and his arms would be weird.
It did turn into Gumby.
Todd McFarlane would go Spider-Man's knees over his head.
Yep.
Oh wow.
Todd was, and it's funny if you ever see a interview with him talking about the editors, he said they would get so mad at him, and finally he looked at them and said, "Look, I'm selling more comics than anybody ever has in the Spider-Man series. What do you want?" And they finally backed off of him because he was, he had a huge hit.
Yeah, it was real funny when he redesigned Spider-Man's webbing, and the editor got so mad and gave it a name.
Spaghetti webbing.
That's where the term spaghetti webbing came from, because the editor was so mad that he just called it "Stop with the spaghetti webbing." Todd was like, I never even thought of giving it a name. He had never thought to give it a name. That was the funny part about that.
Well, that one works.
Well, I mean, remember, like, I'll show you real quick. This was like spider webbing for like years. That kind of look where it was just
Right.
And Todd made it look like, whoa. Let me get rid of that layer. I don't need to look at spider webbing.
Mhm.
All right.
It's one of those things that you really don't think about until after somebody else did it.
Yep. So Lorenzo, did you hear what I said about you tonight? I ain't letting nobody pick on you in my streams no more, or you, Terry, or me.
Oh, yeah.
I'm done with that crap. They want to go mess with people, they can go elsewhere.
For real.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
I wasn't sure if you were actually in when I said that, but I wanted to make sure.
Yeah. I actually followed those guys. I don't know if Terry wants to talk about this or not.
Yeah, we don't have to. I just wanted
Go
to
ahead.
mention.
There were some guys who were.
I want you guys to really open up and just let it out.
Yeah, there's some guys,
There
and I
is no
think they're just
censorship here.
kinda, I don't know. I think these guys are kind of joking around. There's this one guy called Testify, and he calls himself Testy, and the other guy's named Soy Rage. I like the
Yep.
Soy Rage guy. Testify
Yeah, he's funny.
always yells at me, but the Soy Rage guy, I think, is pretty funny because he's like,
I think he yells at you because you usually just sitting back listening. He's trying to get a reaction out of you.
yeah, he's trying to get a rise out of me. So that's why I'm following those guys. It's like, okay, I think these guys have sent me a friend request, like a follow, or I mean, not a friend request. They followed me before, and I'm following them now. Before I don't.
You know, I think
I think I initially blocked them, but now I'm following them. I'm just kind of curious what they're up to. I think they were War Campaign, but they might be like a new faction. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But Soy, the thing I like about Soy Rage is he has that happy gay man voice. Hi, everybody. How are you? And it's like, oh, I love it, man. It's just he sounds so happy, you know, and he'll joke about people, but he does it in such a funny tone that it's almost like, all right, you gotta be kidding, man. You gotta be.
Oh, I didn't see Nighthawk Warrior was in the chat.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good or is it he or she? I can't. I'm sorry, I can't recall. I think it's a guy. A really nice person. I remember from chat, but I don't remember hearing Nighthawk Warrior on many streams though.
I don't think I actually know who Nighthawk Warrior is.
Well, if you follow Gary Shipman and a few others, you'll find him there.
Is he War Campaign or just dude?
No. I don't think so.
He's a comic creator. He's a creator like you and I. Right now, he's working on his own book called Savage Hawk.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited because I'm using Mecha Cheese. Oh, look at that. Nighthawk Warrior, High Mighty Geek Studios.
Yeah.
I'm using Mecha Cheese's Arthur the Werebear in Last Reapers, and that's going to be kind of fun. I'm excited about that. Let's see it. I haven't been to the Supernova site in a while. It looks way different. Oh shoot! I think Arthur might be gone.
Yeah. But we do. If you're gonna do it, do it. That's all I can tell you.
Yep. There we go. I found Arthur. Never mind. Let's see. Well, the thing is, his character fits so well in the end time story that I'm putting together. I'm like, I might as well, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I like Mecha. I know he's had some issues here and there, but he's always been straight with me, too.
Yeah.
I think he's Mike Osmond, though, or Osmad.
Yeah.
So, oh, you mean Mike? And I'm gonna have a big space. Oxmal.
Yes,
If
that
you
guy.
say it the wrong way, if you say it, you could say my, and then it'll sound like something else that's a part of the male anatomy is small.
Oh.
Oxmal. It's actually a character, I think, from a book, though.
I didn't know. You guys are more educated than me.
Well, Chris, I'm gonna show you guys something else. I'm gonna take this. This is something I did 2 years ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Thing is, it's a full page, but I got inspired from the first issue of Spawn to do that.
So do you have web comics or anything that we can start pushing, man?
No, not yet. Not yet. I'm still more into print than anything else.
How are you gonna like that one's a toughie to approach, and I'll tell you how we did it. We used Amazon because I can buy them cheaply. The only downside of that is when people hear Amazon, sometimes they get a little like, "Oh, I don't do Amazon."
Yeah. Right.
But Lulu, I think, does the same thing. I just love this on-demand stuff. Like our campaign that we're filling, I only had to order like 40-something books, you know, between all the packages, and it's like I don't have 500 of this one and 500 of that one. I just boom get what I need.
Well, Kablam has a site they call Indie Planet where you can sell through it also.
Do they do printing as well?
They do printing as well.
Nice. I need to find something a little better because I don't like one thing Amazon does is the inside covers are blank. And I don't mind that as a comic, but it does look cheaper than when you get a full printed comic in the inside.
Right. This is why if you go through sites like Kablam or another is Morris Publishing, they do a lot of printing for comics, and Gecko Printing.
Yep.
They want you to design everything that you want in it. You have the option of buying an ad for the inside back cover or back cover, however you want to do it.
Ad on it, right?
Well, nobody can see your comic book. It's being covered up by a banner, and you're showing us like so low on the screen.
Oh,
yeah. Can you bring it up a little higher?
So this is actually
and now it's a blank page.
This is recommended. And he uses Amazon as well. So it gives inside blank pages on the back cover and on the inside cover.
Okay. I didn't know you were trying to show the blank pages.
Right. So up here,
this is Preston's latest. I need to ask you to show it.
Otherwise, it would look something like this.
Yep.
That's what your inside cover should look like.
And this is what Preston has. He has inside covers too, which I was really impressed with. And his paper stock is really tight. It's not cheesy paper. It's good.
Who has the blank paper then?
Amazon does.
Oh, forget that.
Here's one of my books, and you'll see the inside cover, white and white, which is okay. Like if I want to sign a book on the inside, but it'd still be better to have something printed there.
Was that to show that the white man has been dominating our civilization for too long?
I think so. I think that's what it is.
I think so.
Time for the green man to reign supreme.
All I can imagine is it must be a completely computerized system, and they haven't modified it to fix it.
Time to replace whiteness with greenness.
Well, they're not trying
That's what
to
I
print
do.
comics. They print books, and then they allow you to put a comic in a book. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So their intent is
Yeah.
for like you to write a novel, and in a novel, it's not uncommon to have that. But they'll let you put pictures and comics where the words should be, but they ain't going to do nothing for you on that inside cover still.
Green is
Now,
being
if
waking up
you
at 1
want to
p.m.
do something like this, this is what Anarchy Studios does with their inside covers. They put the logo right there, or the
And if
logo of a
nothing else,
character
at
right
least
there.
something is there, you know, and that's
Right.
what looks really good.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
what- that's
eventually I'm
what
going to have to upgrade that.
That's what
But
that's
for the
what I
meanwhile-
that's what I think I'm doing with this one.
Well, I might just pull like an extra tier on the Kickstarter. I might say inside sketch cover or something. You know what I mean? Do something with the
Yeah.
white page. But
Right.
I really don't want to. I'd rather just get something printed there.
I understand. It's one of those things where it's like you want to make sure that they have something to look at.
Yep.
This is
But for
why
now-
this is why I say you can put the a character logo in there on the inside front cover.
Yep. Well, I would use that space. I would fill it up with something fun, but until they offer it or I find a better printer, that's kind of where I'm at.
I would fill
Yeah.
it with something sad and depressing myself.
What, the inside blank cover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how I can
Yeah.
enhance blank covers.
Because most comic fans want to see something fun as soon as they open the book.
Yep. That has prompted me to start using splash pages. Issue 1 and issue 2 of this year's Hero Shack have them. And previously, I never used splash pages. I always just went right into a 6-panel thing and or a 9-panel.
Hey, hold on, I'll be right back.
All right.
So a splash page that involves that mermaid from that movie Splash, and you get to see her nude behind as she goes into the ocean and.
But not anymore. Disney has cut that.
Oh, that was I find that offensive. I mean, it took I think the perfectly tame, sort of nudity.
Beautiful buttocks. There was no need for that.
Yeah,
But
it's
they do it anyways.
I even talked about that with my priest before. That like there's like tribes of people that like there's this. He was saying there was a tribe of people who, they didn't wear any clothes, and then some missionaries, gave them clothes, and they were fishermen. The clothes got wet. And they all got like hypothermia, died or something. I don't know if it's true, but I think it's a cautionary tale.
It sounds
But,
perfectly logical, though.
Yeah, I can. Well, I don't know if they died, but they supposedly got hypothermia.
Well, it's kind of like they gave the Indian Spanish flu with blankets and just
Yeah, I don't think
really-
we really knew anything about germ theory at the time, or how viruses spread. But still, it's like it's was I was gonna say it wasn't helpful, but that's a very mild understatement. If that's how it was transmitted, it was very it's like I think it was smallpox.
Yeah, it was. You're right.
Yeah, it's and a lot of people say, well, it was intentional. I don't think they really knew how that spread back then. But still, it's like it's like I was watching this documentary about the Nukak, or it's maybe it's Nukak. Well, no, that sounds bad. Let's just say Nukak. And of these indigenous people of the Amazon, and what had happened was they were hunter and gatherers, and then I don't know, lumber companies were coming in and taking, there's this deforestation, and I don't know if the missionary, if I don't know which happened first, if they showed up or if the missionary showed up. In any case, if missionary went and I think he was vaccinating them against diseases, but if none of the outsiders come, there wouldn't be any diseases in the first place.
Right.
And then he taught them how to plant crops, but then they end up after that documentary was done with. I was reading an article where it's like it turned out they were getting what happened is they were growing coca leaves, and so I think I don't know if it was the U.S. government was funding this or what, but I know the Colombian government was going along with and spraying pesticides, and I can't remember if that was part of the drug war, which. And it just spraying, and they were getting their skin all eaten up by the pesticides and stuff, with kind of like with what happened with Agent Orange,
right?
You know, it can cause like chemical burns, or I think it probably did. I think it did more than that with Agent Orange, but you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
It's just so the way that people interfere in society, you know, other cultures, even if they mean well, it's like the Prime Directive on Star Trek. That interfering with another culture, you know, culture can have unforeseen consequences. And I just wonder if sometimes it's a poor idea to interfere, you know.
Oh, it definitely can be.
It is for a noble purpose. Like I'm sure it very well could be that the missionary was just wanting to share the good news, and maybe who knows, maybe they were already losing their land, and only had this tiny amount of land left. That and maybe it was better for food.
So what did I miss?
Oh, I was talking about some missionary taught some people to grow food in the Amazon, the Nukak tribe, but the problem was that they started growing coca leaves, and then of course the Colombian government came along. I can't remember if it was with U.S. funding or not, but they came along and sprayed the crops, and then the people's skins got all eaten up by, kind of like how Agent Orange or any sort of like some of those pesticides can like eat, really harm people. And it's all just because, and here them. But on the other hand, the missionary probably thought he was doing a good job, and who knows, the lumber companies were also coming in and trying to, and stealing their land. So maybe they only had a smaller amount of land, and maybe they couldn't be hunter and gatherers anymore at that point. I don't remember the chronology. I remember they also got introduced to money. I think they were eating like sugary foods, and like they were ignoring they weren't raising the kids anymore. It sounded like, or it was like all because the outsiders had come in, and it was interesting. Oh, they got they got diseases, and the missionary was immunizing them. It just reminded me of the Star Trek Prime Directive. Is this they wouldn't go to like a pre-warp civilization, if I remember right, except for all the different times that they violated that rule.
Right.
I don't know about the specific rule, but they would violate a bunch of other rules. I think they would if they went to a pre-warp civilization, they would go and try to disguise themselves. But they had this Who Watches the Watchers episode of. You guys watch Star Trek? This is
Next Generation. I remember that one.
Yeah, I think it was there might have been a proto Romulan type or a proto Vulcan. I mean, or
in that
they were they were related to the Vulcans and Romulans, and very primitive.
Yep.
I can't remember if that's the one where the people mistook Picard for God or what.
I'm pulling it up. It's the 4th episode of the 3rd season of the American sci-fi television series Star Trek: The Next Generation. Hang on. Let's see. The Enterprise assists the outpost. An accident causes a holographic rock face to disappear, exposing the outpost of Liko, a Mintakan. Liko attempts to approach and is hit with an electric shock, which causes him to fall off the cliff and sustain critical injuries. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Crusher rushes to provide aid. She realizes the injuries are too severe to treat there and has him transported to the Enterprise for treatment despite the action violating the Prime Directive. Liko becomes conscious and witnesses everything occurring in sickbay and focuses on Picard giving instructions. Dr. Crusher is able to heal Liko and attempts to wipe his memory of the incident before returning him to the planet. First Officer Riker suggests that he and Counselor Troy disguise themselves as Mintakans in order to search for Palmer, a missing member of the anthropological team, and to monitor Liko and make sure his memory wipe worked. They discover, to their horror, that the mind wipe did not take, as Liko recalls an image of the Picard and has convinced other Mintakans that Picard must be their god.
Oh yeah, because it just looks. It's like, even to us, it looks like magic when they use the medical tricorder, and all of a sudden the person's arm is healed or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they have other things that they can do, like they can maybe it looks like the person was dead, or somebody can actually be dead and they can be revived. But primitive societies didn't have that technology.
Well, yeah,
I mean, I don't know how somebody can actually be dead and brought back to life without any sort of like faith healer or something. I mean,
imagine
medically dead.
You know, the magic petals of life. Clear. They wouldn't know what any of that was. They'd be like, yeah, he casted a spell and the body jumped and then he was alive.
I guess those petals don't always work as well as they depict on TV or... And then again, but then there's other times where they go and they use the pedals on TV and it doesn't always work. But there was a different episode maybe where these people were like put into, they were in this thing that looked like it was like the side of a mountain, but it was somehow cloaked, and so that they couldn't see, so that the native inhabitants couldn't see the people there, and then somehow. I don't know if it was at the beginning of that episode, and somehow something went wrong with the cloaking, or maybe that's the same episode where the person gets injured.
Yeah, there was a cliff thing in the summary that said he fell from, and that was how they were.
Yeah, so I think they might have been observing from this cloaked side of the mountain, which I guess that does mean they have cloaking technology, but they don't use it on their ships because the Romulans won't let them, except for on Deep Space Nine. They could do that, like on the Defiant. I don't know. It's kind of a strange rule, but of course that's how treaties do tend to work. Treaties can be kind of strange, I guess, even in real life. Like the treaties say, there's treaties that say only certain countries can use nuclear weapons, and other countries cannot.
And that's kind of silly, isn't it? It's like, no, we have like thousands of missiles, but you can't even have one.
Yes, it's really weird.
Yeah, it's kind of silly.
It's
screwed. Half our is over that.
I can see we definitely don't want Iran to have it, but I think, I don't know if it's Noam Chomsky who pointed out, or who is, obviously a country's going to want to have that, and it's kind of something that from their perspective, it would make sense.
Yep.
But, it might not be the...
For the rest of the world, it might not be a great idea.
When the Shah was in power, there were actually... there's an advertisement I've seen, or no, like a PR, or what is it called? Public service announcement or something about And
Yeah, a PSA. Mm.
yeah, but it's like but it's in like I think it's like it's from a magazine or something, and it's a photo saying the Shah's developing uh, nuclear energy for his country. But now that then when the Ayatollahs took over,
That all became weapon based, or at
yeah,
least it's what we hear.
like Trump was given a hard time because he said the Ayatollah Khomeini, and then if you look up the current Ayatollah's name, it's also Khomeini. They were claiming, oh, he's referring to the dead guy. Well, the current Ayatollah is also Khomeini. I think it's his son. So I mean, that was something before they were claiming that Trump has Alzheimer's. now that Biden is running, of course, we don't hear anything from those same people about him and his slip-ups.
Well, it's weird because I've kind of come out of the closet and decided I'm going to support Trump. And I work in a elementary school in Massachusetts, and I've started to let my political opinions be known.
Oh.
And I live in one of the most liberal states in the union, and you ought to see these people, and they say, well, how can you vote for Trump? And I'm like, it just comes down to the candidate the Democrats chose. If they had chosen someone a little younger, a little more charismatic, progressive or not, they would have had a much better chance of winning my vote. But when I hear Biden talk, all I can picture is him getting up there going, you know what, North Korea, you need to, I'm taking up too much time. Like that's how he talks. And it's like, bro, man, just go take a nap and let someone else run.
Yeah. It's too bad. I don't like him at all, but I still kind of feel bad to see that, it just reminds me of what happened with my grandma. Call her Granny. Granny, when she ended up having to go to the home.
Oh,
we tried taking care. We tried. I got somebody to take care of her for a while. I just remember one time she like put the baked potato in the microwave so long that like the smoke detector was going off. And I think that's what kind of Biden did. It's like, is he put the baked potato in the microwave too long.
But that's kind of how Reagan was at the end of his second term. And
it seemed like it. It seemed like he might have had, but it's hard to tell. I don't remember it being anywhere near as bad as with Biden. But then again, I was a real little kid at the time, so
yeah.
It's a sad situation but I do think it didn't turn out that he did have Alzheimer's. Like he was diagnosed. Yeah.
But I know, like when my mom, I had my mom in this room to perish. We brought her here for hospice, and she was having full blown hallucinations. And I remember the last thing she ever said was, "Daddy, help me." And I jumped on her bed in here and I said, "It's okay, honey, I'm right here." And I had to do that because she couldn't see her dad in real life, and somebody had to reassure her. And it spooked me that she was so out of it mentally that my voice, my comfort, was enough to make her think that Daddy was there to help her. After that, she went kind of comatose and she never said another word. But it was something else. And I'm not sad about it. I'm actually kind of honored to be in this room where she was. Diana's father died in here too.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that before. That that room has had experience with.
Yeah, it's a trip. And the only other person who's been so my daughter and I have a special bond because we're the only living ones. But she moved out of the house.
She's gonna always have that bond with you.
Yeah, well, it's funny because they're Diana's daughters. They're my stepdaughters, and my son is her stepson. But right from the beginning, they were like a real family. Like they blew us away because they instantly bonded. They've had the sibling rivalries and stuff, and yet they love each other like they were blood. And that's awesome for us to see, because that was, that's always a concern when you try to pull together your own personal Brady Bunch. Are they actually going to do it? But they did. And they didn't have to. They could have made it hard, but they didn't.
No, they chose an easier path, which I know surprises a lot of people.
We were really blessed that they were just good kids, like they could have been a lot harder on each other. And the only thing they had to get over was I had taught Jace that SpongeBob SquarePants was the Antichrist in cartoons, and the girls love SpongeBob. And Diana had told the girls that South Park was an evil adult, Satan-based cartoon. And yet I allowed Jace to watch that every time it came on. So they were conflicted. They're like, wait a minute. SpongeBob is the Antichrist, but South Park is okay. And I'm like, oops, sorry about that. But she being Diana quickly straightened us out.
So you told those girls that SpongeBob was the Antichrist?
No, I taught Jace, my son, that he was. So they're in their bedroom, right? And they're watching it, and Jace comes in and goes, Dad, they're watching the Antichrist on TV.
So what led you to believe that was the Antichrist?
Honestly, not much, but I didn't like him. So I was, back in those days, that was BC, before Christ. And I was definitely a wicked bastard. Like, if I didn't like something, I taught my kid, you don't like it. And I had to come up with reasons for him not to like it.
Why? Yeah.
And it has backfired a little, because back then I was a staunch Republican, and he still holds that to me to this day. He's like, man, Dad, I thought Bill O'Reilly was a great guy. I'm like, he is. He's like, no, Dad, Bill O'Reilly bad.
So it's because you told him the other stuff that he's questioned.
Yeah. Well, it's just funny now because he's his own man.
I don't like Bill O'Reilly either. I like Tucker Carlson.
I like Tucker more now too. Bill was kind of condescending, kind of an elitist.
Yeah.
And the thing I hated about him was, it's the no spin zone. You're so full of crap, dude.
Oh yeah.
He was like a bowler. Everything had spin.
Yeah, it seemed to be a whole bunch of spin. Now Tucker, it turned out that this was completely misreported. They claimed that his head writer or his main writer was like used 4chan, and it turned. Which that wouldn't even be a big deal if he did. It shouldn't be. But because that's where the brony started off, was on 4chan, and all the people were all those liberals who wear those Guy Fawkes masks because of Anonymous. Anonymous got their start on there too. And so it's just kind of odd that all of a sudden it went from being something that I thought it was kind of a left wing kind of thing, or if anything, in fact, I didn't think I really associate with any particular political thing, but I associate Anonymous with left. Anyway, and I was just all of a sudden during the election, it's like, 4chan, that's the Nazis. It's like, what? It seemed like a bunch of different groups of people, who didn't always get along with each other.
But that's kind of like Twitter. Like, you'll hear about different groups on Twitter. I think it's widely left wing, but there are other people who would tell you, no, man, it's got a lot of right wing, not necessarily in the organization, but you know what I mean? And it's just whatever the media wants to run with. That's usually what they get labeled as. Not to say there's not a predominant one, but
yeah, some social justice people will go and say YouTube's far right, and yet. And the weird thing is YouTube's got constantly banning conservatives, but they're also actually banning people on the left too. And if you go in the advocate for censorship, they'll be surprised if it can catch up with on the other side of the coin.
What's funny though? YouTube is weird. Last night when we were having our stream, those guys were freaking out because I started playing Warrant's Uncle Tom's Cabin. they're like, "Oh, you're going to get a copyright strike." Oh, and I'm like, I never worry about it. The worst that ever happens to me is they tell me I'm not going to make any money on my video.
We'll be right back.
Well, but these guys freak out about it. I'm like, that's not a big issue, guys. But I'm not trying to make money on it.
You know, they call it when they. Uh-oh.
Yeah, sorry he left. I assume he's coming back.
Hopefully he'll be able to get back in. So do you know that the funny thing, they go and they think that Uncle Tom's an insult, but then like from what I'm going to have to go and get the book on audio cassette, but my understanding is Uncle Tom's the man who actually helped. He helped other slaves escape. Now,
okay.
Now I think he sacrificed himself so that for others. So he's like this, almost like kind of be almost like a Christ figure or something, or Christ-like in that sense. But of course, he's vilified.
But they criticize him for doing that?
I don't know why. I don't know. I guess so. I don't know why it's used as an insult.
Yeah, I don't either.
Because, and I think, yeah, because maybe because he himself didn't escape, but I don't know. It's pretty cool if he helped a bunch of other people escape.
Yep.
You know, it just doesn't make any sense. These insults, because especially that one. Again, I haven't read it, but I was watching the documentary about the book, or something. I was watching something on YouTube.
Right.
And I think I watched more than one because I was just trying to make sure that part was true. And now I want to read the book and see what is the deal with Uncle Tom's Cabin. Why? It's just so odd, though, that that's used as an insult.
Yeah, it is.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make none of this stuff make. I think Did you say there was like problems with race where you live?
No, not really. We're pretty cool. When I was growing up, I had a little bit of trouble with Puerto Ricans because they kept beating me up. But I got over that when I started dating Puerto Rican girls.
Oh, yeah. Good for you.
Yeah, well, a pretty woman goes a long way to mend race relations. What's that?
Oh, that's interesting. You should get like an award or something for that.
No, I was just tired of getting my butt beat. Once I was old enough to run a little faster and get away from them, it wasn't so bad. But I've never racism. My mom never allowed us to even have a racist thought. We were so poor and so downtrodden that like she would always be like, "What the hell are you judging somebody for?" Smack,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't. I could imagine. There could be some issues that I personally am not aware of. There's also like it's hard for me to tell, like, say how much I've been discriminated against for being on the autism spectrum, and how much it was like when I'm walking down an alley, was it because I'm autistic, or is it because I was walking down an alley that the cops hassled me?
Yeah.
Or was it because I was with a schizophrenic friend? Yeah, we were the one. Yeah, because he was the one who got it. Who they were asking. We were walking away from the store. I mean, we were walking towards where the store was at with a pizza, and somebody had stolen a wallet from the store. And then the cops asked to search my friend who's schizophrenic.
He must not have taken kindly to that.
Oh, he actually volunteered to allow himself to be searched, and he had 2 wallets. But it wasn't the right wallet. He had 2 wallets because somebody had given him. I think his wife probably had given him a wallet, or a friend. His wife friends were always, one of his wife's friends was constantly like bringing over stuff for them, so it could have been that friend.
Yep.
That was even the funny thing, is like he had 2 wallets, and but still, it wasn't. It wasn't the wallet he was looking for, and he didn't steal either of them. They were both his wallets. I mean, like here's somebody who's like just. Yeah, I mean, going around with two wallets, like that's no big deal.
Yeah.
He allows himself to be certain because that's how innocent that guy is.
Well, we were talking about this today at work. Our generation, we were taught, if a cop pulls you over, it's yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir, right away, sir. I don't know about this younger generation that's like, no, F you, you're not getting my license. They might be right, but I'm still like, oh, that's not the way to handle that. You're going to have a
maybe my interactions with the police where maybe I wasn't I wasn't always polite to the cops either. So maybe who knows? It could be you could have been in some database somewhere. I don't know.
Right.
So it's really hard to tell. And then I'm also there's an issue with poverty, and so it's hard to tell how many people are like being pulled over because there is an issue, like maybe if maybe somebody couldn't afford like to pay for their tabs on their
on their vehicle.
Yeah, but then there's another issue though of somebody just got a real with a clunker or whatever, and people get pulled over for that too.
Yep. When I was a single dad, a couple of years into it, I was so broke. There was a time I was riding around without insurance, and I lived in terror, but I couldn't afford it. Like I had to pay rent, and I had to feed my kid.
Yeah.
And like I was driving crap cars, but if they had pulled me over, that would have basically ended my fatherhood. They would have taken my kid and just, so I understand poverty. What I don't get though is this country, this is where I kind of get socialist a little bit. Cause I'm like, we have so much money. There's no reason anybody should get in trouble for something they, like there should be a way around that. Like if they're going to pay for people's food and rent and they're trying to get a job, well, give them some sort of state insurance, even if it's just liability, nothing major.
It's that's something I never thought of, but that could solve the problem. It seems like what's happening is people are being pulled over, they're given big fines, and they can't afford, and they might even end up in jail, which doesn't even really make any sense because I think going to jail ends up costing the taxpayer so much money versus like paying some fee for not being able to. I don't know.
And really, that's where my liberalism lies. Is like, I will do anything for like a single mom who's desperate. I'll go get her food. I'll help her fill out forms. But that's where like my divide with the right comes because they often say, well, they should have gotten a better job. Well, maybe they can't because of your damn system.
Yeah, and that's why why I think I test out as a left libertarian on the political compass. And Matthew Rees will claim that the political compass is wrong and whatever. So I don't know.
Right.
I just saying that's how I test out is that I'm maybe more left economically, but in pro personal. So I'm like in the pro freedom category, but I'm maybe left economically.
Right.
And Matthew Rees will say that the right tends to be more individual liberty, and the left tends to be more collectivist. Yeah, but there's plenty of. But then what about the religious right? Because some of them can be very collectivist.
That's true too. The problem with the right though is it's so splintered between. The right honestly contains everything from the KKK to moderate conservatives, and figuring out who's who can be tough.
Well, the left has like these corporatists. I mean, the people who are just like, some people are just trying to go and like outdo the Republicans as far as, helping out the large corporations,
Yep.
And outdoing the corporatist Republicans, I mean, because there are, populist Republicans. And then there's actually populist Democrats. Like power to the people. You know, that's different than I don't know. I see Pelosi as being pro corporation. Some people
Oh, she
say
definitely is.
far left extremist, but it doesn't seem that way to me. It seems like she's kind of interchangeable with some of the Republicans on some issues.
Yep,
Obviously,
she is.
there's certain wedge issues where the left they'll argue over abortion, or they'll argue over. Oh gosh, we're getting real controversial.
Well, the thing with her is she will yeah, we are getting controversial, but it's all right. She will say whatever her voting base wants her to, in the sense that if things get really, really far left, she's got no problem coming out and saying whatever it is to make them cheer. But part of the problem is the extreme left knows that too. And they're like, when she tries to play it up, they've been calling her to task recently.
Yeah, I don't think she really cares about any sort of real left wing agenda. I think she just wants to help out like her donors.
Yep. Well, San Francisco is in such bad shape, and that's where she's from. And I know she doesn't control the city or anything like that, but that's the kind of people they have. Like, I watched a video today of a guy trying to pull into his parking garage, and there were people like lounging around on old junk chairs and bums and stuff. They wouldn't move. They were like, "You can get around me," and the guy's honking because he's afraid he's going to hit him. And there's nothing, like, they talk about social programs to help the homeless and stuff, and yet they're inundated with it. It's like,
yeah, they have isn't that where they have the sewage flowing in the streets?
Yes.
Or is that LA or both? I can't even remember now because
I know San Francisco for sure.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Neurotic? There's a streamer called Neurotic, and he lives in San Francisco.
Oh no, is it Nerdrotic?
Nerdrotic, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Gary's the host, I guess his name is. But from what I heard I just watched a stream maybe a couple of weeks ago. They're leaving San Diego or San Francisco now, because California they've shut down her business, his wife's haircutting business for, like, I don't know, 4 months now, and they've got to move. They can't make money there anymore.
That's a shame. Yeah, I can't really. I don't think these. So isn't this homelessness? It's interfering with the business, of what you're saying.
In this case, yeah, the guy couldn't get into his garage properly. It was a parking garage underneath, I guess, an office building, it would look like. But he did get in eventually, but they were slow to move, and they were waving him on and yelling at him to get through, and he's like, I can't. You got to move. Poor people, man. And I don't hold animosity against the homeless. I've known a lot of them, and some of them can't even help themselves. Like, you get them into a situation where they're living in a group home or something, and mentally they break down and end up back on the streets. It's not a good scene.
But something's going wrong with these. I don't know. Maybe it could be though that people flock to certain cities but I wouldn't think they would flock to that particular city because I can see a homeless person flocking to a homeless person, a bunch of homeless people going to one particular city because it's nice for homeless people. But that doesn't sound like the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's not like they're fighting people. There's not like they're helping people out at all if they're homeless. And it sounded like it was similar thing with LA. What are you saying, sorry?
Oh, I was just going to say, I know in Boston, a lot of homeless people over on the west side have to go there, on the west side of the state. We have almost no real services for homeless where I am. We're in Central Mass, so we're even closer to Boston. But that's where, when we were doing street ministry, anybody who was serious about getting off the streets, we would buy them a ticket out to Boston. And Boston has these wonderful programs for people who are homeless. And it was really a cheap way to help them and get them off the streets here and into a program. We've helped a couple of people do that successfully. and a couple that didn't quite make it. But that's neither here nor there. That happens, you know. Sometimes this time
you're
isn't the
saying
time.
that it's not always easy for people to make the adjustments.
Yeah, well, some people like, okay, I've met a lot of veterans on the street, and you know, you hear people cry, "Oh, we need to help those veterans." Some of those guys don't want to be helped. You know, they came back from Vietnam, they didn't feel right in society, and that's where they're comfortable. Now, obviously, if they got the right help, maybe they'd break that cycle and come off the streets. But in their head, that's where they belong. You know, they'd rather live day to day than like get a 9 to 5 and be strapped into that whole social network of you know, kiss the boss's butt for your check and things like that.
It's too bad that they don't get the money that they need to survive.
Yeah. Well, our government doesn't give them hardly crap, right?
I get so confused because I hear different things. Like some people say that there's no problem getting check from the VA. Some people say that takes a long time, and
Well, I'm sure it depends too. Like
waiting for the check from, you know.
I live next to a guy who lost his legs in Iraq, and he's never hurting. He's been taken well care of. But yet, someone who, you know, doesn't have a missing limb and they have psychological issues, they'll get totally pushed to the side by the system because it's not a obvious problem. It's not something that appears to need immediate fixing, even if it is, and they get screwed. They get screwed for the most part.
Yeah, I had an uncle blind uncle. He worked for the VA as a social worker. He had started off as a masseuse. He started off as a masseuse because that was what they used to say. That, this is a job blind people can do, and the only job they can do, you know, or there's like a small number of jobs or whatever. Maybe be a musician or something like a.
But why not push them
to
Ray
Charles? If you're really incredibly amazing, yeah. But he went to U of M back when there probably wasn't that much accommodation back then, and like in the '60s, and became a social worker. I don't know where that really fits in. I mean, they do have social workers, but it seems like there's a lot of people though who still aren't getting what they getting the assistance that they need.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right because
I mean, you know, it's because they have one social worker somewhere. Who knows? They could have thousands of them. They probably do have. That doesn't mean everybody's going to get all the help they need.
Right. Well, and then there's the problem of pride. A lot of these guys won't allow themselves to get help. And then, you know, there's problems with mental health. Some of them, you know, even if they know they need help, they can't bring themselves to get it or to receive it.
I want to know why, say, like automatically when somebody is like sent home, why they're not automatically hooked up with help, like before they even show up back home.
Yeah, you'd think they should be.
You know, what if that's not? What if there's too many people? Because
well, all the money we spend on military, you think they'd take care of the vets that way, you know?
Terry's not here because I think he's a veteran.
Wow. Yeah, where is Terry?
Well, I don't know if he's a veteran, like a war veteran, or if he's
honorably discharged.
There you go. There you are. Just mentioned you. I was wondering, like,
honorably discharged.
Nice.
Awesome.
The thing is, Navy. The thing is, when you're in a battlefield environment for so long, it's the transition period that they normally give you is not long enough.
Gotcha.
It would take about, on average, about 5 to maybe 10 years to reconfigure to a peaceful environment.
And what do they give you?
I know Kingsford told me it told. Well, maybe not just me. I think other people were there to witness it. But he's said some just like really.
Also, depending on what you were
stories
doing,
from I think Iraq.
no, depending on what you were doing while in the military, also plays a huge role in that too.
Right.
So, take
Yeah,
me,
like
for example, I
it
can
would
talk about most of the things that I've done. But the thing is, my duties were so scarce that it really didn't affect me as much as if you were working front line.
right.
That's the
I wonder what it would be like to drive a tank.
those
I've
guys are a
done
lot of fun.
video
Those
games.
guys are a lot of fun to hang out with.
Yeah,
that
talking about Kingsford.
I can tell you that right now. Those guys are a lot of fun to hang out with.
But I think there were some really like sketchy things like these was those improvised explosive devices.
Right.
And
In that type of environment, you become so accustomed to anything being an improvised explosive device that you look at everything with suspicion. Even a plate of food. That's the thing.
yeah, that would make sense.
Even kids, right? I mean, they would send a kid in with a bomb, blow up a
Right.
bunch of Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Go see Allah.
Right.
Wasn't there like an episode of MASH about something like, or maybe I don't know.
It wasn't MASH, I don't think.
Although in Vietnam it wasn't unheard of either.
It wasn't unheard of in Vietnam, no.
Yeah.
Vietnam, the thing about Vietnam was it was a new type of warfare for the US. And so getting used to something like that, when it was over and everyone came home, you still had people who didn't like anyone who was involved in the Vietnam War. So they would get talked about, have things thrown at them, the property vandalized, things like that.
That's really a shame.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with troops that don't have a say, you know?
Right.
I think even when I was like more on the anarchist side of things, I would stand for the veterans.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it wasn't necessarily the flag or the national anthem or whatever, but I would stand if like it was at a parade or
right.
Let's say there was or at a powwow too, because there were so many. My understanding there were a lot of Native people who served in the military.
Right.
A lot of people
Right.
of all races. I mean, oh, wait a second. I don't know if there were. I mean, I don't know if there's a lot of people of say some sort of rainforest pygmy group, but you know what I'm saying.
Well, the basic food groups are covered.
Yeah.
Heck, these days we even have homosexuals and some transgenders in the army.
Yeah. The thing it was
Go ahead.
It was really funny under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Anyone who came out inadvertently as homosexual was reported and they got separated from the military entirely.
Wow.
The thing is, in the Spec Ops community, that didn't happen much because we really didn't care. All we cared about was you being able to do the job.
Yeah.
Whatever you did in private was your business. We didn't want to know about it.
I heard it was. I think it was causing problems for. Wasn't there like a problem? Like if somebody like there were some jobs that were so specialized. Was that the case with that job? Because like I think if somebody's like a translator, let's say they know how to translate the Pashtun language in Afghanistan, that's not really a language that they teach in high school or something.
No,
the U.S. high school students.
Every unit in the military has someone who speaks every language spoken on this planet. So it's like we come to rely on our translators. sometimes, depending on the situation, a little too much.
Yeah.
Because they're the only ones who understand the native language, and it's like, what do you say? What do you say?
Oh, there were some problems like that.
Would rather strangle us than them.
And I think there were. I think my folks had helped out a family of refugees from the country of Laos near Thailand, which Chris coincidentally mentioned on a show the other day, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, after a while, it got to be where the kids learned English and they could translate for their parents. But I think at first my parents had to rely on a translator, and I'm not sure. I think maybe the translator didn't always translate things properly. But to my Lao friends, and the parents did eventually learn some basic English. But when they first came over to America. Well, when they first came, I guess they were in a different city. But when they first came to this town, they didn't really, they probably, I don't think they understood enough English for my parents to really communicate with them all that well.
All right.
Because even when they got older, I think the kids helped translate, and I think there could be like a problem if the translator just starts interpreting things. I mean, it's kind of like how some Bible translations are. Like,
yes.
They start adding stuff into that. I have more experience with like comparing different Bible translations than I do, say, Russian literature or whatever. But it could happen with anything, where it could be like more of like a paraphrase, or somebody could just add their own ideas, what they think.
And how are you going to prove them wrong unless you speak it too?
Yeah, right. I wonder. That could be it seemed like that could be when he said that the military maybe too much relies on translators. I wonder if that could be an issue.
The thing about being a translator is that even though you know the language, you'll get hung up with dialects because people from North Afghanistan, even though they speak Arabic, they speak a different dialect, which has some slang terms which have an entirely different meaning.
Like the minor ones we have in English, like a fag in England is a bunch of sticks.
Right.
Or a cigarette.
Yeah, or a cigarette, right.
Yeah, you might go and hand a British guy a bundle of sixes. No, I want a cigarette.
and not knowing that can get you killed in certain situations.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean,
like bugger is really bad over there.
I'll call the wrong person that term, or say that to the wrong person. You're talking about like a pack of cigarettes and.
Right.
I remember calling somebody a bugger online from England, and they got so mad at me.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I had no idea how bad that was.
Yeah.
Depending, if you're someone from, say, Wales, it's not going to be as offensive, but if you go further north, it's going to be very offensive. You have to remember that, and it's like the English language in the U.S. If you go to Texas and hear a Southern twang in the dialect, you're going to be surprised if you go to Alabama hear a Southern twang that sounds completely different.
Yep,
that's true. There's all those different dialects,
right?
And terminology too, like soda versus tonic, or
Coke.
The one that and like sprinkles versus jimmies. Apparently, jimmies means something racial. And I had no idea. But where I grew up, but where I grew up, that was that was always termed. So when I went to Florida, and I was like, I want some Jimmies, the guy was like, we don't say that here. I'm like, well, what do you say?
That's the thing. That's what people get. That's what gets most people in trouble, because They even though they know the language, they don't know the dialect of the area.
Yep.
I'm thinking of Jimmy hats.
Do you really?
That's what I think of. Well, I don't know what you're talking about with Jimmy's then.
Well, Jimmy's are basically just chocolate sprinkles, and I guess it was some sort of racial something or other somewhere along the line, and I wasn't allowed to say that in Florida. But if I go to an ice cream shop up here and I ask for Jimmy's, they know what I'm talking about, and nobody even blinks an eye.
Exactly.
And I don't think they know the racial issues either with it,
They don't.
So it's kind of funny.
That's the thing. The racial issues that you hear about saying these things, it never leaves a certain area.
Yep. Well, it's almost like the Confederate flag. There was some guy that asked, do you have any, what are your feelings about this? Or what of your, I don't know. It was a question about how we always felt about it or something.
Yeah.
And I said, I thought it was a trademark for the Dukes of Hazzard until I found out that it was offensive to people. I didn't even really know it was
Actually, the
Confederate what it was.
Actually, what you're talking about is the Confederate battle flag, not the flag of the Confederacy, the Confederate States. The thing about that flag is, I see it as a constant reminder of our rights to disagree with our government.
Right.
And for those who were born for those who were born in the South, it's part of their heritage. That's another thing that most people don't get.
Well, yeah, because if you're not part of it, it just sounds like a racist thing.
I wonder how long till they start going after the Bonnie Blue flag, the actual Confederate flag.
I know,
or at least I think it's one of them. I think it was one of the official ones.
It's one of them. But the thing is, the Confederate battle flag is so mainstream. That's the only one they look at.
Yeah, the only one they know about.
Exactly.
Really, I mean, the common man.
I'm wondering if Antifa probably has a little handout. If you have this flag, you're a racist, without any sort of nuance. If you have a sort of haircut, you must be a racist.
Yeah.
You're using this symbol, which, could be used. Symbolism is kind of like an ink blot. Somebody could see. Let's see. I heard that Jewish people coming over to Ellis Island, they were from Eastern Europe. They'd write using the Hebrew write like Yiddish and the Hebrew alphabet. So they would just say, make an X here, and then they would make an X. They would make what was known as I believe a kyklos, and that which is Greek for circle, and supposedly that led to a certain slur that I won't use that people can, I guess, if they don't know about or whatever. But I'm not going to say it. But because it was what it meant. On the other hand, I don't know why the immigration officials would be speaking Greek, and they speak. It could be an urban legend, but that's that was like the stories that the X looks like a cross. And, so some people a cross could be seen as something totally, really, a sign of oppression, and another person that's salvation. So it's just again, I don't know why would they use Greek. Why would they use a Greek word? I don't know. Unless the immigration officials were Greek.
Now that
I don't even know the Yiddish word for circle, if that was borrowed from Greek or not. So, but that's a story that's told.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the funny thing is the Ku Klux Klan got their name from the same Greek word. They're claiming to be a Greek, kind of like a Greek fraternity.
Wow, that's a trip, huh?
Yeah, it's it's back after it was maybe after the Civil War. It was I think it was a veterans group but only for the white veterans of the Civil War.
naturally, right?
And
But it's funny because if you look at the Ku Klux Klan's beginnings, they weren't at least publicly known as racist as they became. And it was like a lot of white people were joining into it, thinking it was one thing, and then it became another. And that's my fear with any of these.
Yeah.
The thing about the Klan evolved into what it is today. That's the thing.
Right.
It had actually died off, and then there was a movie called Birth of the Nation that went and revitalized it in the 1920s.
Mm-hmm.
In the 1920s, it was very popular to join that, and it was like,
I can tell you this much about the Klan: they're not very collectivist. The way their view on people, the way their view on individuals is, if you can do the job, do it. I just don't want. But then over time, it became, if you can do the job, do it. If you're black, don't do it in my neighborhood. Do it in your own neighborhood.
The interesting thing was that the Nation of Islam was like that for a while too.
You got to remember, groups like that are individualist by nature.
Really? Not collectivist? I would have thought they were collectivist.
Not really. Not really, because they look at things based on what you can do, and if you're contributing. Everybody has to contribute something. But the thing is, you're not expected to see things the way your fellow Klansman sees it.
So, like, one guy brings the hamburgers, another guy brings the hot dogs, and the other person brings the buns?
Right. Yeah.
Huh. Like, kind of like a potluck or something.
Right.
I did actually see, they're like, I've seen like video footage of a clan group getting together, having barbecues, and they're like they consider themselves a social, fraternal organization,
right?
Like the Masons or the Elks Club or whatever, but only for people of one skin tone,
right?
It's really odd, since all humans look alike.
The thing is, but in order to get in, you have to know someone that's already in. They didn't necessarily advertise that they were members. That's why when you see a group of Klansmen, all you see is the uniform. You never see the person underneath.
Yeah. You're not supposed to, at least, right?
Yeah, that's why I thought we were a collectivist. But you're like saying there, but they probably like pull yourself up by your own bootstraps type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is what these guys
are that, if somebody's able to do that, then that's the best way to go. It's like instead of like people just complaining about why doesn't Marvel or DC create this character, somebody has some sort of artistic abilities and they can, or they're a writer, or in the case of like say Cecil, maybe, or with the guy Tug, they hire somebody to hire people to go, and maybe they're not even, or was it Richard C. Meyer, I think, was a project director, but but he might have. I can't remember the book he was working on with Stallone, but he.
Oh, the Expendables.
Yeah, but he was able to go and pull that off, and people can, and that's a good example. That's he's an indie creator, and I think he hired out some other people to do that particular book, but. I could be wrong, but
also knew people who were skilled in the field. That was it. That was his other thing.
Well, yeah, I'm seeing he was able to kind of pull himself up by his own bootstraps in a different kind of way, and he did get help from the people donating to the campaign. But you go to the store, you might get help from the customers.
Mm-hmm.
So
you have to understand he's also a veteran, so that's the way his mind works.
I can definitely see that like instead of like I remember young Ripa just it wasn't that long ago. He made. Are you guys familiar with him? Young
What's his
Ripa.
name?
Young Ripa.
Young Ripper, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I am.
He's a YouTuber, and he was talking about how as a black man, he thought it was demeaning that Black Lives Matter was trying to give respect from white people, and he said that he was actually saying that was more of a Dr. King thing, and I never even really thought about that. And he was saying that whereas Malcolm X, he said, was more into just people doing things themselves. I don't know if that's accurate or not accurate.
In a way, it's accurate because it's like whereas King stood is like integration is one thing, but Malcolm was like, why would you want to force your way into a space that was built by someone else instead of building your own space?
Right.
Yeah, later on, I think after he went to Mecca and came back and he saw everybody was worshiping all these different people, different races worshiping God. I think he came back and he toned down his rhetoric about. He also said that Elijah Muhammad was, the Nation of Islam wasn't he didn't think was all that dedicated to doing to like actually building up their own community. I think he still believed in that black people should like pool the resources, invest in their own communities. But I think later on he was a little less into the segregation thing.
He still believes that, but it's like if you're gonna do his views is like if you're gonna do it, do it. Don't wait for anyone else to do it for you.
Young Ripa says, he said, like, he phrased it, if you're in my way, get out of the way.
Right.
And let me do my thing, and that was and he just thought it was like, he said that the going and begging for white people's acceptance was the loser way.
No.
And then that was the thing I hadn't really even thought about with Black Lives Matter is that they are and again it seems like there's a lot of people I think who are involved in that, and and there's like also like a national organization and so I'm not saying everybody's a certain way, but it does seem like it's about like trying to get white people to.
Well, the stated goal is for equality, but some of the fringe units, like the New York based BLM, is literally saying they don't want equality, they want equity. They're not fighting to be equal, they want their own deal. And they say that they're decentralized, so that means like the LA branch can do something different than the New York branch, even if they share a common goal.
Maybe that's why some people there's a couple really nice people I know who support that organization. Both of them are white for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I have theories on white people that get overly involved in those things like that. Basically, I think they're covering their racism, but I could be wrong.
What about these What about these like wealthy people are always talking about their white privilege, but they never talk about their financial privilege.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem in that, like, they know
it is. It's one of the main.
It's kind of hard to tell what's racism and what's poverty, like, because when there's the big like these companies come in and they start like strip mining on Native American land, is that environmental racism, or is that the exploitation of poor people's resources? Because there's also like the white people in Appalachia, I know there's black people there as well, but I think it's predominantly white. And they've got this mountaintop removal, which is literally just blowing the tops out of the mountains. And so it's hard for me to know is this being done because of somebody's race, or is this being done because someone's poor, or is it both? Or like with bullies, like when some bully singles people out, are they singling that person out because of their gender or their orientation or their race, or because they're bullies and they see this person, I can single them out because
bullies usually single people out just because they can.
because I was wondering about like why some people in the comic book scene came after me and why they came after my friends and all that. And it's like, oh, they're bullies. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you didn't necessarily mean that anybody did anything wrong. It might not have had anything to do with their physical appearance or their gender or orientation. Or
sometimes that might be the reason why they do it.
Yeah, it could be too. That's the other thing. That's a weird thing about it, is that you've never really. It's hard to tell, and so I'm wondering how much of that's going on with, like, say, the police, having negative just like police brutality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the police.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the police brutality, I think, really is the minority. But what happens, or what's been happening, is those bullies in the police department are also bullying the good cops, and the good cops don't get any support from the higher ups, and the unions cover them. In a sense, that's where I think the most reform should be done. Get rid of those a-holes and neuter the freaking union. Like, okay, you guys can negotiate for salaries and for vacations, but stop showing up and saying, no, this officer, he's totally, completely innocent of killing this guy. No, do an investigation. If the officer is liable, bust his ass and get him out of the force.
Right.
That's my thought on it. It drives me nuts when I hear, like, I have a lot of cop friends and they don't get it. They're like, well, it's not me. Well, I know it's not you, but how many times have you seen the cop go over the line and not said anything, because it happens all the time with them.
Yeah.
I think that's wrong. I would hate to be on the end of not being able to stop that. You know what I mean? Like, if I was a victim, it would drive me nuts. That
it sounds like there's talks about like new laws requiring.
Yes, there have been. I guess a couple of counties or cities or states have already put something in there like that.
Yeah. Also,
but it needs to be a mandate federally.
I guess federally they would say it have to do. They couldn't, like, maybe. I don't think Congress could pass a law, but maybe they could say, in order to get federal funds, you got to do such and such. I think that's a possibility. I think it's. I've also heard there's a problem with there's like officers being trained in warrior training, which is like maybe not all that appropriate if you're just like giving someone a ticket or something. Like you might not want that officer training. You might want that officer trained in how to also know how to de-escalate some sort of.
Yeah, I'm not against warrior training if they balance that with like social service training.
The problem isn't with the police, is with the communities itself.
Right.
Well, there are different communities. You're talking about like different communities having different like standards of training that are required for.
No. I'm not talking about on the police. I'm talking about the community itself, where you've seen what happened to George Floyd, right?
Yeah.
The thing they leave out is what he did before his encounter with the police, and why the police had to do what they did. That was the problem.
I've heard that, but I also heard that this this cop, and George Floyd knew each other, and the cop didn't like George Floyd because Floyd didn't like how the officer treated the patrons of like whatever establishment they were security guard at. So I'm hearing different things. I'm curious what will come out in court. I think the truth will hopefully come out in court.
Well, when you get caught with fake currency and trying to pass it, then you have a problem. But the problem wouldn't escalate if you would just do as you're told. But no, he had to resist arrest and pose a threat to the
I think it was actually having a heart attack, is what they were saying in the coroner report. So it'll be interesting to see what really happened.
Well, I don't know, but I know it's going to be very hard for him to get off on this because it will cause a national riots start right back up. So he's kind of screwed.
Like the LA riots with the Rodney King.
Yeah.
Which well, the media, I think that what the media does is they go and they I wonder if these newspapers are deliberately and news channels are deliberately picking the most controversial stories to cover.
Oh, yeah, I bet you they are.
It's never the situations that are the most clear cut. The cops did this, or the officers didn't do that. It's always something like the George Floyd case, or where it was like it's so complex, and then they were lying about. He said the word punks, I think, or was it thought, or what is at least they were trying to make it out like he had used a racial slur, I think, and they were trying to make it out like he was white, but he was he was half German, but he was also half Latino or Hispanic.
Right.
I mean, he actually identifies as Latino on his voter registration, and yet he was being reported as a white man. But this white man did this. It's like, they didn't like what he did, so he's white.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because I heard that will happen with I think Tim Pool, and there's things that there's things where there's some sort of controversy going on with his brother. His brother claimed that he had started that he had been part of a company, and then Tim Pool excluded him from the company. But I don't know about that. But the thing is, some of the things Tim Pool says, I think, is interesting. You guys know about?
Yeah, I know about it.
Yeah, I figured. So, because he seems really popular with a lot of people who are in the kind of our comic book circle. But I think he said before that he'll run into situations where he's being called where he's like a minority, but then other cases they consider him to be white because he's part Korean and part white.
You have to remember, he's half Asian, half white, so it's like depending on what he's doing, they don't know how to categorize him.
Yeah, I think they said based upon. I think maybe he said sometimes people just completely disregard his opinions, and I don't know if it's based upon if his opinions don't line up with what a minority is supposed to say or not, because that seems to be the case with it's always weird. It seems like a lot of these white people are always explaining why white Antifa people are always trying to explain why minorities' opinions don't count. They could still be a Nazi even if they're black. It's like, oh, what?
What? Yeah, that's the.
I mean, I know there were some Japanese imperialists who were allied with the Nazis, and they went and had to come up with some sort of convoluted race theory to figure that out. But it's still, but they're making out like there's a bunch of black Nazis walking around the streets of America. Right. I don't think that's even possible or sensible or anything. It's just like, what are they talking about?
I know.
And they actually they also conflate the Klan with the Nazis, where I think they're actually traditionally separate movements that didn't even get along. I heard there were actually even white supremacists fighting against the Nazis in World War II. I'm not saying they were good guys. I'm just saying that's how confusing the situation can get. And yet, I think that these Antifa people are saying that if somebody even like has some view about trans people or abortion that they don't agree with, and they're the same, they lump them in with Nazis.
Right.
It's so weird.
Well, in some cases, that becomes the boogeyman.
Yeah.
And when they do that, that's when everything else loses its meaning.
It is kind of, I see the same sort of thing happening with my friends when going on Twitter and calling my conservative friends, calling people communists. Not all my conservative friends, but so some of my conservative friends will call, anyone associated with a communist. And I think maybe some of the core people, the groups, the BLM group, some of these maybe people running the BLM website, maybe there are communists involved. I don't know. And I think Chris was saying there's different autonomous groups.
Yeah, there are.
So, yeah. I don't think every individual in there, or even in Antifa, is a communist. I think what they even mean by communists can be different. There's even like these anarcho-communists, which are like something different, and how these anarcho-communists and Antifa are behaving is different than like how Kropotkin and Russia behave. Where you just like started a commune or whatever. I think, it's so weird, but all this nuance gets thrown out the window these days. I don't know if it's Twitter. I think maybe social media I think that really is contributing to that.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah.
I'm slowly fading fast. Boy, that sounds funny. Slowly fading fast. But I have to go to bed or else I'm going to be dead.
All right.
I love you guys. Thanks for the convo. And
no problem.
Yeah. All right, man.
Thank you, Chris. Take care.
And don't forget, Thursday night, we got to do this.
Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
Yeah, so
it's always fun.
Yeah, he's what he said, slowly fading fast. But yeah, I kind of get what he was saying.
Yeah,
I know.
Given what time it is, I know. We know he has to work though.
Yeah. He talks about working in the schools. I think they have to get up early. The teachers.
Yeah.
I know he's a tech guy, but not just teachers, but like people working in schools have to.
They have to be there before the kids do.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the janitors. They probably do too, or they're at night, or I don't know. I remember seeing janitors during the day at school. I think.
No, you didn't. You saw them at night.
They always had those keys at the range.
And then during the school day, there was a skeleton crew of custodians on call.
Yeah, that's what I remember. That was really cool though. They had all those keys.
I know.
That's what my parents told me about Santa Claus, is that because he was obviously too fat to fit down our chimney, because our chimney was like really, that anybody would be too fat to, but especially the way Santa is always portrayed as like kind of fat but jolly.
Yeah.
And so my parents said, "Oh yeah, he's got some magic keys." They just like it's like I think somebody did actually make some magic key that back in the day they would like actually fit in a bunch of different, a bunch of different models of this one brand of car,
Right. Well, given the fact that most kids live in apartment buildings nowadays instead of a house with a chimney, it's like it makes sense to say something like that. And then
when I go and see the person, the Santa, like we call them Santa, but it's like, well, secretly they're Santa's helpers,
Right.
and that's how Santa could be at all these these.
All these
I don't know if
kids.
he cloned himself or what the deal is, but there, yeah, there's so many of these helpers.
That's,
Maybe his elves are able to do that. So. But it's cool. My parents like come up with these creative ideas that,
right.
and maybe that's how things work. Maybe there's the guy who clones himself and shows up at.
You want to know something real funny?
Sure.
You want to know how NATO started tracking Santa?
I remember seeing that on. Yeah, that on the news.
That was a pure accident.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because someone had some advertiser had printed a number where you can call to see where Santa Claus is, and they accidentally printed NATO's number there, so NATO just took it and ran with it.
Yeah, I remember there being a government organization like tracking Santa each year.
Yeah, that was NATO. NATO started doing that after a misprint newspaper. I think it was a newspaper or a magazine or something like that. They had all these kids calling them, and so they decided to play along with it, and they've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, that would be it is a neat tradition.
Yeah, it was one of those accidental things and everybody had fun with it. So every year they do it every year.
Well, that's I always thought it was an entertaining tradition. Because I just remember watching the news and Santa was being tracked and
right.
And I ended up writing some letters to Santa as a kid. Somehow my mom ended up finding them, so I don't know. I guess Santa must have sent it back or one of his helpers. And it was kind of funny because my mom said like where a stamp would be, there's it looks like it's drawn in with a pencil.
Oh no!
Pen. Yeah, I don't think there was an actual legal stamp.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. Guess who's waiting outside?
Oh.
Yeah. And French that one French friend of yours.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I should let him sweat a little.
Well, you're the host. I can't.
I know. What do you want? You're right, man. I said, what do you want? You're on my channel now.
Boom.
So behave yourself or else. But anyway, how you doing?
It's interesting because I swear the other day this guy could actually speak English but in a French accent. Now I think all he's saying is "we."
No, he's trying to be funny. Whoa,
well, that was a little different.
That was. He left. Why?
Oh, you didn't kick him?
No.
I thought you were going to.
No, I didn't think him. I thought
Maybe,
he was going to
maybe one of his friends will show up.
No, I was hoping that he would stay and just make everybody laugh. That's what I was hoping. But as someone once said, we can't always have our way.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know how good his internet connection is wherever he's at.
Yeah, Yeah, that's another thing we have to take into account too. So
I think and also can also depend on like if somebody's got like a phone or computer that
right.
doesn't seem all that compatible with StreamYard. I don't quite understand how it's a situation, but it seems like some people connect a lot easier to the software.
Yeah. Well, if you're using an Android phone, yeah, you connect easier because it's more compatible with a Google interface. So that's the only thing I can see.
Yeah, I remember for some reason well, I know Google had, I mean, YouTube, Google on you with YouTube, because
Yeah.
their company, they had made it so that I think it was Hangouts wouldn't
Yeah.
work all that well with Firefox, is what some people are claiming, and then
Yeah.
people were claiming that it would work better to use Chrome. Again, I don't know. It seemed like that's when I started using Chrome, was because of
Right.
that. But
Most people use Chrome to because it works because its software is compatible with YouTube and a few other streaming services, few other platforms.
I know
So
for a while Chrome was. I think what Chrome did was they took the. I think they took. I think first Apple took. There was a project called. There's this Linux project, KDE. They had their own desktop to make the computer, more usable for, versus like say one can actually use like Linux without even a user interface.
yeah.
But then there's X Windows. It's very like basic, like kind of point and click, the graphical user interface. And then there's like KDE and different software. I don't know what if they're called window managers or what they call it, but to make it more user friendly. And KDE had this Conquer browser, and I think
Yeah.
what Apple did was they took part of that and used it to make this WebKit thing, for their Safari browser. And then I think Chrome took it because it's open source and someone can legally modify the code.
Yeah.
The code's readily available, and I think they modified it for Chrome or they have this like Chromium thing, and then when they put the Google branding in it, they call it Chrome. Oh gosh, that was a lot to say.
Yeah.
About rambling. I don't even know if it even matters that much. I just thought it was kind of interesting because it seemed like I guess my basic point was that they were coming in with something, and I don't know, it seemed like they were coming up with something really, maybe it could have been even faster than Firefox for a while. Like they're always back and forth. And I think that competition may have helped out because I think it always helps.
Well, competition always helps. No matter don't believe the naysayers when they say competition is a bad thing.
Yeah, because even though these projects were like even though the code was open source to certain aspects of their browser, I think just the web part of the Apple, thing was open source. But the thing is that I think that, but still whereas I think Apple and Google may have been using the similar technology they got from this KDE. I think Firefox had gone and they were like a successor to Netscape.
Yeah.
they can open because they started off as an open source version of Netscape called Mozilla, and then they came up with a Mozilla Firefox. But but even though they're open source, it still helps to have competition.
Yeah.
I mean, even though it helps to have like two completely different like rendering engines. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
The rendering engines are different, so they make my one website might look slightly different on another browser.
That's true.
It's not like when it used to be really different, like when there was Netscape and Internet Explorer. Those were radically different sometimes in how a web page would show up. Because I remember I was making some
it turned out that Windows was easier to navigate than Netscape. The Windows operating system proved to be an easier navigation.
Oh, with their Internet Explorer?
Yeah.
Because I remember they had it made it so that there was a big lawsuit because they made it so Netscape couldn't work as well. Which when like it was like slower or something.
Yeah.
But the thing was their interface.
If you had a Windows operating system, yeah.
The Internet Explorer was I think they were adding their own features to it, so I don't quite understand why they felt the need to even do that because it turned into like its own thing. I mean, I think there were plenty of people who even once they fixed it so Netscape was slower, there are so many people who I think preferred Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
Where some people just didn't and some people hate Internet Explorer and even hate Microsoft Edge. But there's always going to be haters, I guess, and people just prefer other software.
Yeah, there's always going to be preferences. That's the whole point of the game.
Yeah, actually,
this is why everything is updated every 2 years or so.
I think I had a problem with Chrome in the past where it seemed like if I got too many bookmarks, it would just cause the browser to slow down.
Right.
It was Chrome. And so I think they may have worked that out because I have plenty of bookmarks. But
actually, that happens with any browser. So.
Huh?
That happens with every browser.
What I'm saying is it seemed like it really happened like worse with Chrome on the Mac because I was using a Mac. It seemed like the Mac version of Chrome at least used to bog way down. I have quite a few bookmarks now, and well, probably not as many as I used to, but it seemed like it got better though with that.
Yeah,
I'm saying it seemed like there were different reasons why for a while I used Firefox, and then reasons why I switched away from that. I think they changed their user interface, and I ended up having to go and use their classic interface or use some sort of extension that would simplify it and make it more like the classic interface.
Yeah.
And not even like the Netscape interface, but the more traditional, but the one that for the newer Fire.
Yeah.
I mean, Firefox is newer, but it was whatever an older version of the Firefox version is what something happened where I think they were trying to compete with Chrome OS, and they just kept making changes, and eventually, like I think using Chrome on my phone, and it worked better, and also using YouTube.
Yeah.
Then I started using Chrome or just different Chromium based browsers, because there's also Brave. There's something called SW Iron. There's all sorts of offshoots of the open source Chromium, which I don't think is that different from Chrome. I mean, in like how it looks, I think Chrome has some like proprietary Google technology in there, like maybe software patents that they can't put in the other. The cool thing about these browsers, another thing is, I think one can,
that's the thing.
I think it was also useful with what is it called, Netflix for a while. I think they had something that one could get as an extension that was capable of. I mean, I think you can play it on Firefox as well. I'm just saying, it seemed like they had something that could be like, I don't even know how to explain that. Either it was a technology that was built into the browser, or one could get as an extension. And it was a browser extension, maybe, instead of downloading it as some sort of system file or whatever, or however that works. And what they have is that I think they have this thing called Quicksilver. So could have it wrong. They have some sort of copyright protection. And it seemed like Chrome had like an extension for a while or something that one could use. They had Netflix. I think they actually had a Netflix extension. That was the deal. So I just there's some neat things that they had in Chrome that I couldn't find in Firefox, and sadly I stopped using Firefox.
You have to remember, Chrome is now a universal browser.
Yeah, it became the popular one.
Yeah, because you can use it on the go, and anything with a mobile application is the better product.
Well, the thing is, there's some some people say that there's some privacy issues, and some people say, well, you can just go into the system settings and turn things off. And I think that was the thing with the SW Iron, is they claimed that they were more secure, and other people are saying, well, no, you can actually go on the Chrome and turn them off, and turn off those things that, share this with Google or whatever.
Yeah.
But even Firefox has things like send crash reports, and
right.
They do have a mobile browser, but it's not. I don't think it's all that easy to use with Firefox. Like the way to bookmark things is terrible. I don't find that at all. It seems like I can't even remember what the deal is. I think with I know the thing with Chrome is, let's say somebody goes and they want to bookmark a page, they can bookmark it into whatever folder they want to.
Right.
At the time, you don't have to mess with it after they add the bookmark and then go in there, second time and arrange it. I think that was a problem with Firefox. There's not the problem, where it's different. Whereas I think both Chrome and that there's that Brave browser when the Chromium offshoots. I think they set up so you can just go and put in the folder right away. Just put it. I like that because I have a comic book folder and I got a history folder. Like not my web history, but history. Historical events and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's neat how they make it so you can just go and put it right there. And I thought Firefox has that. I think Firefox might have that for their computer app, but I don't think they have that in their mobile app. The mobile app interface Seems totally
Mobile.
different.
The thing about the Firefox mobile interface, it's very limited.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah, you have a knack of simplifying things. I go and I ramble on, and sorry about that.
Which is why when it comes to browsers, most people prefer Chrome because it's even if you use Chrome on your phone, it's not limited.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the one limitation is I can't find ad blockers for Chrome on the mobile devices, and they claim they got a built-in ad blocker that blocks ads
Mm-hmm.
if they're intrusive. But there's been
Yeah.
ads to cover up a newspaper article, and I can't remove it because
Well, it all depends on what your device
deal with
is.
the companies.
Yeah. It also depends on how you have your device set up. If you have it where only certain things can show up, then you're not going to get everything.
Well, I heard of people like rooting their. I don't know if that's the term that they. I know that's. I think the term they use is with Apple, but there's ways of. I think they have the. Or is it? I think with Android you can go and get the root one's phone, and I don't know if that means that somebody's got to install Linux on there, or well, it's got or. I know they got. I think there's like a Linux kernel to Android, so maybe that's the deal. I think somebody's got to get the command line interface, but I don't know for sure. But I've heard that if they root their phone, people can go and put in different things. They can just go and block ads on the whole device. I think, in some sort of settings.
Yeah.
Like one program might block it. It would be. I think it's a different program because they've downloaded programs before to block some ad block programs, and it said you have to go and root your phone. I think I was with Android. I don't think it was with Apple. But they do have. I do think they have a similar thing where people are. I know people go and jailbreak is what they call it in the Apple phones.
Yeah.
Is where they. But with the Apple phones, I think they download a custom operating system.
Yeah.
Or firmware.
The operating system will be messed up with some of the downloads, especially with Apple.
It's I think I jailbroke my phone and when I had an Apple phone and I messed up, and then I think I ended up with viruses and but I even messed up, like I wasn't even able to. I don't know. Maybe I was able to install the custom OS because I do remember. Having custom themes on there.
Yeah.
But it just didn't work the way it was supposed to. And I wish Apple would make it easier to install other operating systems because I wanted a dual boot Linux on an old Mac of mine, and it was a Mac Mini, and they just made it so I had to put it at the desk into the super drive. I actually had to go and use burn a disk image, but I know what happened. In that case, I think the problem was that the super drive didn't work because there was some update of the operating system that made it so somebody had. I think the super drives were DVD they were DVD burners, and they could read DVDs. They could burn CDs and they could read CDs.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was that one of their updates to their operating system made it so I couldn't could no longer burn DVDs.
Right.
Which made it so I couldn't actually make DVDs of the when I was like that was like why I bought it was to make DVDs of like movies that home movies that friends of mine would make these like low budget films.
Yeah.
And so it also meant that I couldn't burn the Linux CD.
Yeah.
But it seemed like they had made it overly complicated too to install it. But I could be wrong. Maybe I could probably just use a thumb drive to install it.
Yeah, you could, but the thing is, it's going to be better. Like I said, the thing is going to be very limited.
Well, I'm using Chrome OS, and this is limited. But that is such an old Mac. There wasn't really any sense in me.
Yeah.
This Chromebook might. I think it's probably faster than that Mac by now. I'm gonna have to get the Mac out and get because I got some music on there I want to upload to the internet. But yeah, the problem with that Mac is I don't have biggest problems I don't have other than a DVD drive is the even bigger problems. I can't even set that thing up because I don't have a table in this. I got kind of a small apartment and don't have a table free. My kitchen table has a bunch of comic books on it. My end tables have lamps on them. I could set it on an end table, move the lamp. Maybe I get like a TV tray or something and put that. Maybe something sturdier than that.
Yeah.
But, get a kind of like an end table or something like that and use that. That's what I used to put my TV on. I have an end table that I have in the middle of the living room. It's not like anybody can really sit on that side of the living room anyway. So it's kind of well, if they sat there, they wouldn't be able to see the TV. So it's hard to explain.
Yeah, could.
You have a table that just kind of a small table they put the TV on.
Yeah.
And I'm planning on doing something where I set the computer on a table pretty soon, some sort of small table, and just use it long enough to upload some songs to YouTube. The songs that I recorded with friends. So that should be interesting. See if I can do that. And see how people respond to videos like that. I'm not sure if there'll be music videos or it'll be a blank screen or what, or how I'm going to be able to get the songs up there.
Good question.
Because, well, I haven't made any music videos, so I don't. I think I could use Chrome OS to edit it because it's going to take up some sort of spot in the room that's it's going to be just sitting in the middle. It's just going to be sitting like in wherever set the computer is going to be some spot where somebody could stumble over if they came in. So I would only be using it long enough to get it uploaded to the internet.
Very true.
Maybe uploads if I have some videos on there. I upload some of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, we can do that.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
You just gotta figure out your setup too.
Yeah, I need to figure out where I can where I'm gonna set up the computer.
Right.
And the monitor. Because I got a TV that's and I think it goes out to the computer goes out to HDMI, but there was a bug in that particular Mac. Maybe not in every single. Maybe not the model, but it could just be I got a lemon or something. Because It was just the HDMI out doesn't work. The thing is, I got that refurbished, and Apple shouldn't have had that problem, but it's my fault for not telling them right away.
Right.
Because the picture just, I don't know, it just doesn't show up very well. I guess the first thing I'm going to try is I'll try connecting it to this TV. See how terrible that is. And if I can at least get some sort of picture out of it, out of there.
If you can get a picture, then you'll be all right.
Huh?
If you can get a picture, you'll be all right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the screen was just like maybe too dark to read. Like even if I turned the brightness up, or I think maybe something happened with a.
The thing about refurbished equipment is that you don't know what happened to it before it was refurbished.
Yeah.
So that could be many things that could have been wrong with it.
Apple's kind of a strange company as far as making repairs.
I know.
That Louis Rossman guy, it seems like it just he keeps. Have you seen his channel?
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was watching I remember on YouTube seeing like, what's the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, but they've got some guy from America who works on Macs, and so I checked out I did a search for his name. It turned out he had his own channel. Maybe they even mentioned it in the video. Probably did.
Probably did.
And I just
You have to understand that
repair.
Yeah, you have to also understand that Apple doesn't want anyone else doing any type of repairs to anything.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. Is as he was they don't give out the schematics. They don't even like. There's parts that they make so they make it so. I think they make it so the phone does. If you replace the screen on the phone, or maybe it's a laptop, or like the thing stops working if you don't have the right. If you don't have the same, I don't know, or it's just even like maybe it's if you don't have the right software to fix that. I don't know exactly. I just remember hearing all these different. I've heard of doing so many different things. I can't even remember.
Yeah,
what it was with the screen, but
that's the thing about Apple, though.
You've always been that. Not always, but they've often been that way. I like it when Steve. I don't know if it was after Steve Jobs came back to Apple or right before that. They came out the Mac G3 and the G4. They both had a thing on the side, this little tab you could pull out and open it up. And that was just a breath of fresh air as far as I was concerned. Because Apple gone from having a special screwdriver with the original Mac to open it.
Yeah.
To making it one of the easiest cases to open.
Yeah. But then they realize they can make more money by having people send stuff back to them to have it repaired.
Yeah, so they've gone back and like in the old the direction they started, and I think they're making it like really difficult, even maybe to. I don't know if they. I don't know. Maybe it's easy. Maybe it'll be easy enough to replace a hard drive. I don't know. I think some Mac laptops, one could replace a hard drive quite easily. I know the Mac Mini, a friend of mine, it was easy to install extra RAM in the version I have. But a friend had to take out a bunch of screws and a bunch of things and a bunch of objects in there just to replace the hard drive. Some of that could have to do with how tiny the case is. It's like almost like a toaster, but it's put on its side, and not like a fancy toaster oven, but just
I know.
kind of a weird kind of device. I like it because it's quiet. I don't. If there's a fan in there, I never heard it.
Oh, there's a fan
There's no
in there.
fan or a very quiet one.
Yeah, there's a fan in there, but it's just so small and so quiet that you don't notice it.
Yeah, that's I'm trying to remember if once I if it ever went on was or heard it when it was playing a game or something. Every day was really quiet. The Xbox One S. I don't know about the original one or the Xbox One X, but the One S is extremely quiet.
Yeah, it is.
I like that. And my Chromebook is extremely quiet. That's a big thing for me. So those gaming laptops, I've heard, can be pretty noisy.
Yeah, depending on who made them. Yeah.
Do you know if there's any? Do you know of any better brands or not?
Well, as far as gaming laptops go, not really.
Yeah, I've heard people say. I remember people were telling the EVS to don't buy Alienware, but I think it was even. I think it was even for like a tower. But I think they were. I think they're. I guess there's really no reason to buy a gaming rig. To like, he was just doing that for his live stream.
Right. No, that would have been a total waste of money.
I mean, it. I think it was pretty smooth streaming that, but I don't think I don't think he probably got some fancy video card that he didn't really need.
Mm-hmm.
Because streaming. I think that would be something where it more helped to like have a lot of RAM.
Yeah.
And maybe a decent processor, but maybe not like a really. Well, that's the weird thing with gaming PCs is sometimes the processors aren't as much of an issue as for a while. Some people were using like maybe like a Pentium 5 instead of a Pentium, was it 7 or whatever, and then they were using like a really good graphics card.
Yeah.
And
the thing about a gaming PC or especially a gaming PC, most gamers build their own.
Yeah.
Yes. They find it better to build your own rig than to buy one pre-made, because you have to update the processor every so often.
Yeah.
And you also have to update your graphics card, and a few other components.
I heard that I think things are changing now, but I heard that more video games was it using multi-threading or I'm not as up on technology as I used to be. When I was a little kid, I was more up on it than a lot of adults, but it's kind of changed over the years. But I think not too long ago, it used to be that it was like somebody could get by with like maybe a slightly less powerful processor, if not too, but not like a really piece of crap processor, but just didn't need to have the most recent type of Pentium if their graphics card was good.
Right.
Because it was a GPU that was like more important handling the graphics.
Yeah.
But I have heard nowadays that some of the games are actually taking advantage of the more powerful processors.
Yeah, they are.
But for a long time, people were saying use the older. You could use like a Pentium 5 instead of a Pentium 7, and I think that was like in a laptop. I'm trying to remember if that somehow worked out better as far as power consumption or what the deal was.
It's probably the power consumption of most of these. Most
Because
of these things,
I've heard,
power consumption became a problem.
I think now Apple's coming up with their own processor again. Apple had that. Apple used to have that with back in the G3 and G4 days.
Mhm.
They were using that. They were using some sort of processor. I think they had worked on with IBM,
Yeah.
and it never really. It didn't really catch on much outside of Macs. I think there was some sort of Amiga that was made with that.
Yeah.
I don't think Commodore owns the.
No, they don't.
You know, it's like Atari got sold. Atari, there's Atari name, but it's different than the original company.
Yeah.
But it was I know with that one the problem was it tended to, I think, overheat. So I think they switched to Intel, but now Apple's talking about switching towards to ARM-based processors like in phones or tablets.
Yeah.
So that
You got to remember now, Apple makes about 50% of tablets and homes, so they're going to focus on that.
well, I've heard that their iPad Pros are really good. It sounds like they might be using a more sophisticated operating system than. I mean, like and then the Mac OS, I think, is actually able to play. I might be able to run iOS software now. I can't remember because they just upgraded it. I don't think they call it OS 10 anymore. They call it something else, I think. I mean, they call it like different like code names. It's like they had like the Maverick. I think the Maverick.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's going to be. I wonder if they're going to do something kind of similar with like I got this Chromebook where I can fold over the screen and you use it more like a tablet. I wonder if they're going to go and be doing different kinds of stuff. Like I wonder if they're going to go like. I hope they bring a touchscreen to Mac OS because they're really good at it with the iOS. But for a long time, people would be like they'd be going to their Apple store or wherever and look, and they'd be going and there'd be all these fingerprints on the screen because they'd be trying to use the touchscreen that didn't exist.
Right.
That seems like something that Apple should be excelling at. So
Apple is lagging in that department because the Microsoft Surface, which is a laptop, tablet in one, has a touch screen and a keyboard. So
yeah,
and then Microsoft so far it's in the lead because of that.
I'm wondering if when they're going to this ARM-based processors, I'm wondering if and with their new operating system update, I'm wondering if they're going to be going in that direction, kind of blurring the line between, like, say, maybe a laptop and a tablet, because it seems like they maybe want to kind of merge the operating systems,
right?
But it seems like they've been really slow at it. They first introduced these dashboard widgets with the two Mac OS, but I don't think they actually when I had that, well, I mean, when I was running my Mac, it was I had to open up a special program, I think, just to use those widgets instead of just taking that widget and putting it on the screen. So I got like, say, a calendar or something. It's like we were trying to integrate it, but maybe having a kind of hard time.
Yeah.
Kind of having a hard time doing something I could use in a Linux Mint desktop, or probably KDE. I think KDE might have that, or GNOME. They're just like Apple had actually kind of invented that stuff, or maybe they got that from Xerox. They had these desk accessories in the Apple menu where if one can get out the calculator and put it on the screen. And I think the only difference,
IBM have been doing that for a long time.
Really, even back, I'm talking about like when IBMs were all like kind of text based.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had those calculators like that.
Yeah, because the majority of IBM's computers was used for accounting.
I know that I know they had things that one could run over DOS called shells.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when they came out with those. I ended up there were Apples in school, old Apple IIs.
Yeah.
And I had an Atari as a kid, and my parents got the original Macintosh, which they upgraded to to a Mac Plus eventually. They ended up getting another like Apple II CI, I think it was called, later on. So I didn't really have much experience with IBM compatibles, which is kind of unfortunate. It would have been nice to be exposed to multiple computers, as far as I was concerned, computers. So I never really was very successful with Microsoft DOS or Windows. Like, it seems like I know every time I had a Windows PC, something happened to some DLL file that would end up missing. And I had to figure out what to do about it, or get some sort of virus.
Yeah.
With Macintosh, they actually did have viruses for Macs when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were as psychedelic as some of the ones for DOS, because I remember hearing some PC virus that it would actually somehow, I think it would like turn off the fan, and then the computer would overheat, and then
kill the computer itself. Yeah.
I mean that's a pretty creative. Maybe that was like the old school version of trolls, I mean.
Yeah.
Actually, I know there were people who called themselves trolls that weren't malicious or whatever. I'm just saying, like, the old-fashioned way of messing with people with computers seemed like to be these people writing these really crazy viruses. They had one for they had all sorts for the Mac. They had like Trojan horses that take over the computer, and people got that from I mean, I guess somebody could probably maybe they could have gotten that from using a modem back then, but it was like people used to exchange discs a lot, just like person to person. It was kind of like some sort of like hush hush, like covert situation, like a drug deal or something.
Yeah, that's fun.
But but it's like yeah, I don't. It's just I remember using I remember having used like a virus protection program. Even using like shareware. I get shareware from the users group meetings. People would show up with a shareware disk. You could have a virus on there. So I had to have an antivirus program, or my family had to for their Mac. And I remember I was the one running that thing. Like, I don't think my parents would have ever used the program to check the Mac for viruses. But I think I think that program itself could have been shareware, or it could have gone in the Mac users group.
Yeah.
But then after a while, it seemed like people gave up on even. I mean, I'm sure there's quite a few viruses out there for modern Macs, but I don't remember hearing that many people even running antivirus software. Somebody was saying that the code needs to be signed in order for Apple to run Mac OS to run it. I'm not sure exactly what that means. It has to have some sort of signature.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
Probably needs authorization from the whoever wrote the program. That's probably what that's talking about.
It sounds like it needs some sort of verification.
Verification thing. Yeah.
Authorization. Yeah. To make sure that's the right thing.
Right.
Because I never had. I don't know when I was a kid, but I can't even remember when I was a kid if I ever had any like bad computer viruses. But when I was an adult, I never had anything like that bad that made the computer not work at all.
Yeah.
Or just barely work. But I had it for other operating systems.
Yeah.
Like I might go in there and might go in the system files, and somebody goes and uses a virus scanner. They remove the virus, but still, but then there's some missing system files or something. It seems.
Mm-hmm. Thing is, in order to remove a virus from your computer, it's gonna have to destroy the original file, whatever was infected by it. So that's why.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like once it can be really difficult to get get the computer working right without just I think initializing the hard drive and starting over sometimes.
Yeah.
Because it seems like some of these viruses just target the system files or do something.
Yeah.
Because when they're removed, they
delete the entire file. Yeah. Because basically that's all it's targeting is the system files, or what would be deemed important files.
I wonder, I'm guessing these people must get a thrill out of making these viruses, or might just seem kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if, I heard that some of these might be like what they call script kiddies.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's that they're all 12 years old, or that they're, or it could be their mentality. Whoever's making it is kind of childish, I would think, to want to mess up somebody's life like that. It doesn't really, because it doesn't seem to serve a purpose. I think with the Trojan horses, I think it can actually allow people to go and access a file system. I think that might be called the Trojan horse. I remember there's viruses and Trojan horses, and something called a worm.
Oh yeah.
And I think that used to be a problem with Unix. There was some really serious worm back in the day, and I think it's not as big of a problem anymore.
Well, the thing about worm programs is they take pieces out of everything. That's the thing. That's what they were
Oh,
designed to do.
well, Chris had tagged us in some sort of tweet about it's just I see it's one of those chain letter kind of
Oh,
things on Twitter where like 7 films and 7 friends in no particular order. I always wonder who benefits from that information once that thing starts.
I don't know. That's why I ignore them.
I know there's also those chain letters that
Yeah, that's basically that's what they came from.
it's interesting to see a later Battle Angel and the Passion of Christ in the same list, along with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and Logan.
Yeah.
7 films and 7 friends in no particular order. I get okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, for some reason he's got us in there. I guess it's nice of him to think of us, but
Yeah.
he's got a Fire and then General Grudge.
Oh, there's Pope Fire and still on Twitter. If she is,
Yeah, she privated her account,
uh
and I don't really blame her either.
I don't either. I'll just say we could invite her in, but given the
Well, she's
time
in
and
DM group actually.
yeah,
For the Sleestackians.
yeah, that's what the link is.
Yeah, I mean, I could just send it to her directly, but I think she's been. I remember the other night she was like really tired because I think we were asking if she wanted to come on and promote her. I think she said she wanted to promote her book, and then I think Skinny was doing a live stream, but it wasn't that particular night, and she just meant sometime in the future because that night she was tired. This is odd. Okay, huh? I'm following General Grudge. I don't know if he knows who I am, but I know he is. He got some really cool stuff on his page. I was just looking over at Twitter to see if there were any what people were saying in the message group. See if they were like saying anything about the stream, but I think they were just saying that they couldn't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scanny and Melter couldn't make it. And they put the reason in there, but reasons. And obviously I'm not going to read that on air, but
well, when you come to my channel, you're free to say what you will.
yeah, I just don't read DMs. You know, I feel like I'm not going to, I don't, it's not really, it doesn't really matter why.
Now, ooh.
I don't think it's a big secret why they couldn't make it. It's just kind of irrelevant anyway. But it was interesting. People at least were responding to that, to your message besides Chris. It's unlike Melter and Skinny. They might have wanted to join us, but we're otherwise preoccupied.
Yeah.
That's cool that Chris joined, though. I mean, sometimes he'll suggest I'm going to stream, and then he gets like preoccupied.
Yeah. That's understandable.
Or he falls asleep. Yeah, he's when somebody is married, and then they also have to get up early in the morning, there's all sorts of things that can go wrong. Not, I won't say go wrong, just could go unintended.
Yeah, that's the main problem there. Uh-oh.
Well, I think it was cool that I don't even know where the link is anymore, but Pope Fire's got that comic book she's working on.
Mm-hmm.
And with Raggedy Man, I don't know who's doing what. I thought maybe she was doing the artwork herself. So I don't know if Raggedy Man's in the story or working the story, or if we got that reversed. They could both be working on the story, maybe. I don't know. I remember Pope Fire, all of a sudden, she used to have an avatar that it was Starfire, but it was in her clothing that she would dress in, the jacket she'd wear and hat. And then now there's a different Pope Fire that's a completely OC that doesn't look like Starfire. And I think that Pope Fire is going to be or not just going to be, is currently in that webcomic.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's not. From what I've seen of it, it's pretty interesting. It's an interesting comic, to say the least.
Yeah, she had some. I was trying to remember. I'm trying to remember the backstory of her character. It was very complex, but she said that she was going to, I think, kind of slowly reveal that. I was like, oh, okay, thank goodness, because it just didn't seem to. It seemed like it would be maybe overwhelming if it was told all at once. I think it would be kind of like maybe, well, I think it'd be like any sort of superhero that has like any sort of deep lore to it. I think that would be possible to tell all at once and every aspect of the character. And I think the first time she explained the character, it was like maybe a little too much all at once. But now I see what she's doing with it. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, obviously, I think this is some sort of like thing where she's very new to this, but it's pretty.
I'm just glad she decided to do it.
Huh?
I'm just glad she decided to do it.
And not only did she decide to do it, but she decided to do it in a practical way. She's uploading it to this website, and where there's so many people they think, well, it has to be Indiegogo, and right away it has to go into Indiegogo. But there's been comic books that started out as webcomics, and then maybe later there was some sort of crowdfunding campaign to put them in a book. Or like what Skinny did, where was that the Ashcan Publications or something that he's affiliated with? He's not the only person, but I think they go make maybe like more like manga size stuff.
Yeah,
and they have their own printer, I think.
Yeah,
and they use like Patreon to fund it.
Yeah, they're making, what they're doing is making ash cans, which are easy to make because basically you're using a standard sheet of printer paper and folding it in half.
Yeah, another thing people like, I mean, just think like a friend of mine did here in town. I don't remember. I think there might have been some comics in there, but it was mainly writing. It was a zine that just like made using photocopier.
Yeah.
And so that's the sort of thing that I'm trying to encourage people to do. Because I got, I didn't know. Oh, I was watching YouTube. Like I had been making like TV shows for the public access station and trying to figure out what to do for YouTube, because I uploaded some like B movies I had made to YouTube, and then they removed the videos and maybe changed how YouTube worked, or I don't know what had happened, why they did that, but there was a time I remember when you could only upload like 10-minute long videos.
Yeah.
There was I don't think it was chopped down into that. But I had uploaded, I think it was just one video and they removed it for some reason. I don't and I didn't, and then I lost my backup copy. I couldn't find or I couldn't transfer it from the DVD or something. I can't remember. And so it just made it so so for some reason I ended up with I've got a different YouTube account than I originally had. And but once I decided to go and I was watching, once I got an Xbox, I started watching YouTube a lot on there. And I started that's when I first started subscribing to channels. I don't think I'd ever subscribed to channel before. And I think I didn't start doing that once I got an Xbox. And I started watching people like Sargon of Akkad and people like that. Kind of these people critical of like Anita Sarkeesian and But then but it was when I saw Richard C. Meyer, and he was like, he had this handheld camera. He's got this like books, and he's like filming in his crotch half the time, but it really didn't matter because that it was the content of the video that mattered.
Yeah.
Not that there's things that a lot of things I disagree with him about nowadays, but still, this is the first time I've seen any sort of thing like this, and like presenting comics in this sort of fashion. It's like with Ethan Van Sciver. When I first saw him with his channel, and I don't know if I learned about it through Richard C. Meyer or if he was in Comicsgate when I first saw Ethan. I can't remember, because I know he's doing his channel. I think he was doing his channel before he was Comicsgate.
Yeah.
But I remember him saying that, like, doing a drawing channel, anybody can draw Batman. So that really opened me up, opened up my mind as far as
anybody can draw Batman.
Huh?
Just about anyone can draw Batman. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I think his show was called Anyone Can Draw, and they had maybe different variations each week. But it was such a really cool thing that helped get me into comic books. But I think it was Richard C. Meyer's channel, and Ethan's too, because Ethan was he just told up his camera to his he'd have like 3 iPads. Now I would never be able to afford like 3 of them, but that wasn't the point. It was that I was watching people like maybe using like OBS and using all this high tech stuff, like on.
But then you go to Ethan and Rich and Zach's channel, it's like they're not using all of that. They're using something simple.
Yeah, and that's like, okay, I can get my start on YouTube. Yeah. Like, because I thought that everybody had to have a fancy studio with a expensive microphone that is mounted on the desk and a certain fashion, and had to have the what do they call that? The soundproofing on the wall, called They card it in, I think, great for something, but it's not really.
Yeah.
It's actually something. It's like just as. But the foam, yeah, I thought I had to have that foam on my wall
Yeah.
and all that stuff to. And then all of a sudden, yeah, it's very simple. Going back to just like not even a camcorder, which I have a camcorder, but just using the one's cell phone. It's like,
Yeah.
like holy crap! I'm able to. This just looks like something you could do. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I haven't done the actual comic book reviews, even though I plan to, because I think I would have to read enough comic books to be knowledgeable, and there's people way more knowledgeable, but even that I considered like doing is like a complete newbie
Well, first of all, if you're gonna do comic book reviews, you have to do that on books that the books that you like to read.
Yeah.
So just because he does a Batman review every now and then doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about reviewing. That was a weird thing, is I thought about reviewing indie comic books. Oh, I know what had happened though is I often get like special perks, and unfortunately I cannot get like say like a 2-book perk if it's like it's like Tim Lim, and it goes like every month that he comes out with a comic book, and because people, and I got a friend I typically get an extra copy for. But if my friend can just go on Amazon and get it, instead of like Indiegogo is the only chance of getting it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get an extra copy.
No.
This friend helps me, will often like buy me lunch and stuff. And like, if I'm not able to chip in towards lunch, well, I'll buy him a comic book. That's how I figure,
Yeah.
Because a bunch of times ordering pizza, and that can really add up. Like maybe a pizza. Some of those pizzas, like with breadsticks or whatever added, and pop or whatever, that might be the price of a comic book. Like a price of like a graphic novel on Indiegogo.
Yeah.
So I buy comic books, or like graphic novels and stuff. And so I try to get the 2-book premium. I don't know where I was going with that. Why I brought that up? No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No problem.
But I do tend to get 2 books. I don't know what the relevance was.
Well, sometimes having a second book works because, especially if you're going to review it on your channel. Yeah.
Oh, I know what it was. So by the time when I get like a special perk, sometimes it takes longer for that to get shipped out.
Right.
And it could be maybe it could be the position of my name in the alphabet too. It just seems like it just always get my books last. The weird thing was with Brand, where I think I got mine months ago. People talked about getting Brand. I got mine just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Maybe like a month ago at most. I think some people had theirs several months ago, but I got like I think a 2-book perk. Yeah. Well, I know I got 2 books, but I don't know if there were any ash cans. If there's ash cans, I will typically get 2 books and 2 ash cans. As I said, I can't do that if it's somebody who's just really prolific and also puts it on Amazon. It's really no sense in that.
No.
And like Tim Lim offers, there's so many different ways of getting his books.
Mhm.
It's. I think even with JDA, and that's really. I think it's really cool that they do that because I'm trying to get people to move beyond just Indiegogo. I know Indiegogo's got some neat features and stuff. I'm just like, somebody can make a web comic, or they could make like an ash can or something and use Patreon, or somebody could even use PayPal.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. If I'm gonna really do this, my thing is I like the idea of making ash cans and things like that. I've got paper large enough where I can trim it down to an actual comic book size, which isn't a hard thing to do.
What about now? Can you print them? Can you like print it on a printer or
If you have a large format printer, yeah.
Oh, I'm saying, can you print it? I meant, can you print it on yours or not? Or are you just talking about handmade, which is actually really cool?
And handmade, I can print a handmade on mine. If I want to print one that's comic size on my own, I'd have to go to Staples or someplace like that.
Oh, you can actually. So you're saying you got a big enough printer to?
If you got a big enough printer to print an 11 by 17 page, which you can fold in half and trim down, yeah.
So what you're saying is you're saying you have enough you have big enough paper for your computer printer to make like say an ash can then?
Yeah. Ash cans are usually
now. How would it look on would it be different than if you had like a professional printer or do you have a professional printer?
Depending on the paper quality, that's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wonder what you do with a professional printer. If you, I don't know if it does the difference have to do with the ink cartridges. I don't know. I never had a professional printer.
Professional printers. I think you were looking at a better paper quality, better ink quality too. There's several things. There's several things that go with it. But if you have a laser printer at home or a laser copier, which prints color, yeah, you can do that. And all you'd have to do is just put the pages together, staple them, and ship them out.
Oh, cool. I know that and that's something I saw. I didn't really say hi or anything. I just saw that I just saw that Nasser was streaming with George.
Yeah, George.
I can't pronounce it. I'm having problems remembering his last name.
He has a large format printer which he uses to print his own comics.
Yeah, and I believe it's a professional.
Yeah, it's a professional model
printer, but he says that he said that he wasn't even gonna really. One video he made about it, he said, "I'm not gonna even tell you I'm not even gonna talk about the printer brand because you might need something else for yourself or whatever." And
he's not. The thing about George is he's not going to recommend a brand of printer. He's going to recommend a type. He's not going to do any brand recognition because everybody's situation is different. So
I think that's what he was saying before. And I had some. He's blocking me on Twitter and stuff, but I'm not talking about that. Like that was kind of my doing. But that's where he definitely, I think people should listen to is it is a pretty good idea. Now maybe it wouldn't work for every situation either. Like Like maybe certain people are printing so many books that they'd maybe have to have a
you need
warehouse full of printers or something, and maybe
you'd need a professional printer.
But for fulfilling his campaigns, it seems to work really well. I mean, I got one of the most like beautiful comic books I own is George's first Mary Sue. And he's got a second one that I turned talking about on Master Show.
Okay.
It's I think it's either Indiegogo or Kickstarter. I don't remember, but he's got a campaign for Mary Sue too.
Oh.
And I got the Mary Sue books and the problematic books. I got 2 of each, and then I gave the extras away to a friend of mine who keeps buying me pizza.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one.
That's the way it goes.
Yeah, I like that he's promoting. I like that he's promoting this whole it's kind of punk rock what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go and like print your own comic book. You don't. I mean, that's even going beyond what that's like it's not even like, well, I gotta go and like maybe with Ethan I can kind of see why Ethan might have so many books that he might have to have them printed. I don't know how many printers that would take to for all those different campaigns.
In the case of Ethan, he has a million, close to 1 million subs, let's say, and but all of them, majority of them are going to back his book. They're going to back his book, so it's like it'll be cost efficient for him to go to a professional printer to have to print his books than to do it himself. It'll be cheaper for him to do that.
The weird thing is I never could tell if it was the majority of his audience or if it was like, because what it was, I kept hearing about is somebody say, well, I bought this version and then I bought that version and then I bought another version. But whatever the situation was, he was getting a lot of different.
Yeah.
It could have been the majority of the people watching. Could have been the majority. Like what you're saying, because I think of it. But I don't know what's going on now. What happened the first time? Because when the first book launched, I think it was the second Comicsgate book. I think Richard C. Meyer had released
Richard C. Meyer was the first with Jawbreakers.
And I'm trying to remember how I think they discussed it together who should launch first, and it makes sense. Richard C. Meyer was the guy who what was it? I think it turned out there's some SJWs who had conspired against him.
Yeah.
There's even talk about like, I think it was actually JDA, which is kind of trippy now because he's kind of on the outs with EVS. But I think he was the one who did the article about. I don't know if he did the article about Richard Meyer and how they were plotting to beat him up at a con, or I think he did the first article. I think he did an article for the Federalist where he used the word Comicsgate.
Yeah.
And I think Captain Cummings had maybe used that first, but JDA had like written an article about it.
Yeah.
And regardless of what one thinks of JDA, I just think it probably brought quite a bit of attention to Comicsgate, like as because JDA was saying after that people were starting to use that as a hashtag.
Yeah. No, because the thing was, it wasn't really a hashtag until after that. There's a,
And I don't know, that might have been a different article than the one about the.
yeah.
I do know JDA. I don't know what was talking about JD. I think he was talking about how JDA had written an article about people who threatened to beat him. Who was, I don't know, some SJW comic creator, I think. I think some big 2 comic book creator wanted to beat him up.
No, if you're talking about the Mark Wade incident, that's not correct.
Before then.
The thing is,
but the Mark Wade
didn't like his channel because he was criticizing their work. He was actually giving honest criticism about what they were doing, how they were doing it. And they really
the Mark Wade thing is what really led to. You're right. It was the Mark Wade thing that really led to. That's what led to him crowdfunding. The interesting thing is there's allegations that maybe he had multiple publishers who were willing to. But the thing was, Antarctic Press had been already intimidated. So.
Well, actually, Mark Wade called and intimidated Antarctic Press.
That's what I meant. Yeah, he called up and he intimidated. I guess he did that too. And whatever someone thinks of Peter Simeti, I know he's very controversial. Especially, and he and George had gone back and forth, and that also made him controversial. But I know there was something recently between him and. Captain Cummings, but the thing the thing is that Mark Wade called him up too and intimidated him.
Mm-hmm. Tried to anyway.
Yeah, I think Ethan's claimed that Peter was getting suicidal and stuff over that,
Nah.
And the thing is that I don't know. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing, and I don't even know if that's true. It's like kind of secondhand, and now I'm telling you third hand.
Right.
I'm seeing there was an allegation, and I think Mark Wade. He seems. I actually started following him on Twitter a while back, but just to see what he was up to. But it seems like, based on the interview EVS did with him, I think it was, I don't know, it might have been before EVS joined CG.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Mark Wade went on there after that.
No.
But it seems like Mark Wade has some issues.
Yeah, we know this.
Like, I don't know if he really sets off to be evil or anything. I just think he just ends up
showing a poor side of himself. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even think so with I don't like throwing around words like evil, I see EVS as being narcissistic, but and doing very, very bad, maybe even use the word evil things, but I'm not going to say categorically this is an evil person or that person's an evil person. I try not to judge that sort of way.
We all try not to judge, but it happens.
Yeah, but I think as can happen as people can have even if somebody's even if somebody went to a psychiatrist and was diagnosed as a sociopath, that could very well be some sort of thing in their brain that maybe they don't have the spot in their brain functioning properly where it deals with empathy.
Maybe.
So it's just too bad, though, because I don't know where it's going with the whole history of Comicsgate.
Well, you have to look at it like this. The whole thing about Comicsgate, how it started was basically a consumer revolt against against putting an agenda in something that's supposed to be entertaining.
The thing is, I remember being the label itself being a kind of a conspiracy theory because like one side was labeling. I mean, there was one group of people labeling anybody with like a difference of opinion SJWs if they. Not SJWs. Well, there you go. There's one side that actually was the thing was one side of people would be calling the one group SJWs and the other group would be calling them Comicsgate. And neither label was. Sometimes the SJWs were self-applied label though.
Yeah.
Everything with Comicsgate is that was like a label that I remember being told that I'm Comicsgate, and it's like.
We knew who the SJWs were because they called themselves SJWs.
Or they like talking about critical race theory or gender theory or whatever.
Yeah.
That's
how we knew them. Problem is they didn't know what they really didn't know us because we didn't refer to ourselves as Comicsgate or anything like that. We refer to ourselves as fans who were very disappointed.
Interesting.
Comicsgate was a label they gave to us.
Yeah, and I never liked the label because I remember Gamergate and bringing up Gamergate. Don't say that around here. And I wondered why, because it seemed like Gamergate had been successful to me, but people acted like, it seemed like both sides didn't want to talk about it. So it's like, and I think this was happening with Comicsgate is, well, even right now, I was going to say 10 years from now, but even right now, people will be like, I think some people are like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
It's like what's the deal? It's like even Ethan said he was initially confused. I just thought as far as which side was which.
Yeah.
Then again, DC was paying him good money to be confused about the issue.
Yeah. Then his fans told him what was actually going on, and then he thought about it, and was like, "Oh, so that's what this is all about."
I think I wouldn't be surprised if from the beginning he was like, "Oh, I think I could get some sort of leadership role, out of this." I could be wrong. Didn't take long before he was being called Caesar.
No, I think someone else jokingly called him that, and he just accepted it.
Well, I think it worked out perfectly for him for a while, for a long time, and then I don't think it's working out well for him now.
No.
And that's kind of unfortunate as far as because as far as his comic books, with Kyle's colors, some of those pages in Cyberfrog look like really cool.
I know.
Now, some of it people pointed out, well, here the proportions are kind of off or whatever, but some of the pages look really cool, and it's and I would have bought had he not been involved in so much, like had the war campaign not got after some of my friends,
Yeah.
and it was really confusing because I was friends with the war campaign at the time, and then I just noticed that they were going after my friends, and then some. I mean, not everybody in the war campaign, but it seemed like some of the people with very well-known names, and nobody seemed to have a problem with that. And then it seemed like, oh, this is what a kind of a powerful faction within there are up to. And of course, there's people on the kind of, they maybe use their Discord servers and stuff. You know, I mean, go log into Discord, or of course, I don't know what it takes to qualify as war campaign. But if people use that name, and they never once harassed me, I haven't heard about them harassing my friends. I have no problem with that. I even heard a war campaign going around about people who are either affiliated with the war campaign or they've got some sort of offshoot going around apologizing to people, saying, you know, we're sorry that we went and made these sorts of like photos of. So that's really interesting now. I'll see how that. It'll be interesting to see how that progresses.
Yeah, it would be. Well, Lorenzo, it's getting late, so I'm gonna call it a night.
Yeah, it's almost one.
It's almost midnight here.
Water because I'm thirsty.
Yeah.
Try not to drink too much at once, but
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm gonna end the broadcast, and I'm gonna wish everyone a good night.
Good night, everybody. Oh yeah, and tune in. Was it like Thursdays?
Yeah.
The
Thursdays.
Stack channel.
Yes. Tune in Thursday for
And some other days I'll broadcast.
All right. Night, everyone.
Take care, everybody.